Welcome one and all to this third training on the wonders of Adobe Captivate. At this point, we hope you've been enjoying the first two sessions covering in detail how amazing this e-learning development tool can be. But believe it or not, there is more. In this series, we get a lot deeper into the variety of important topics such as accessibility and quizzing. In particular, we discuss how to create, edit, and format closed captioning, how to apply alternate text to images, working with tab order for screen readers, and a whole lot more. As far as advanced quiz strategies, we get into working with question pools, inserting random questions, how to use the GIF and CSV file formats in your quizzing. We also create from scratch a very complex drag and drop interaction complete with states and variables. And finally, we explore Captivate's incredible assets panel to easily create complex interactions quickly and expertly. Now, this class is meant to be very interactive with experiential learning the key to your progress. So you may hear me say things like, pause the video and try for yourself. So go ahead and make sure to download the class files provided so you can practice all that we cover in this class. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you in our first session. In this set of lessons, we are going to discuss accessibility in e-learning development. So what accessibility implies is that we would like to have an equal opportunity for all users, regardless of their levels of impairment or disabilities. So somebody who has hearing impairment, who is visually impaired, we want them to all have the same experience as those who are not visually or hearing impaired. For example, if something is on the screen that is text, we would like to have it so the visual impaired student can have their screen reading software read it to them. Or we will have closed captioning, so those of us who are hearing impaired can actually read what's on the screen since they cannot hear it. So there's a lot of different parameters around it which we're going to discuss, and ultimately I'm going to show you how we can actually use these things, how we can actually apply them as developers. Let's go ahead now and give a little bit of an overview of accessibility to give us a little bit of background on where a lot of these laws and properties came from. So let's go all the way back to 1973 with the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 that prohibits any kind of employment discrimination based on people's abilities. And now if you fast forward into the future, in the late 90s or mid 90s, we have Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, which gives equal opportunity within technology. And then we also have a partnership with the World Wide Web Consortium, which also puts on more parameters, okay? And what are those parameters? We're going to discuss those in a little bit. But ultimately, the goal is to give equal opportunity and equal experience to all users, okay? So what does that look like? When we're developing our training modules, we want to make sure that all of the metadata that's available is seen by someone, for example, who has visual impairment with their screen readers. So many people who are visually impaired use screen reading software. So these screen readers will actually read the screen to each individual who is using your training module, and it'll read back to them the metadata, for example. You'll also see that alternative tags or alt tags are applied to images. Screen readers cannot read an image. So what we have to do as developers is put what we call alt tags or a descriptor on the images describing what the image is, because the user and the screen reader cannot actually see the images. We also have tab order. That's going to be something we're going to discuss. Because why is it a tab order? Because when the user is using their screen reader, they are using the tab key on their keyboard to go through each individual part, and then it's going to tell them what that button does and what the commands are, and then they can execute the command based on where they are on the screen using their keyboard. Also closed captioning for hearing impaired individuals. So we want to make it so closed captioning is available so people who are hearing impaired who cannot actually hear the sound can actually read it on the screen. So we're going to talk about that as well, how we can do that. And we also want to make sure that your player controls have the right types of settings so the screen readers can actually read what the player controls are, and we can tab to each of those as well. Okay, now the looming question is, who should create accessible training? Okay, and the simple answer is everyone. Some of you may not be required necessarily to do it, because those who are required are going to be people who are working for the federal government or doing any kind of business with the federal government. Okay, you might even just have a contract with them, or maybe you're working for the state, but you're getting loans from the federal government. You are absolutely required to do so. You could get audited. Your website could get audited. Your training should get audited. But we also want to think from an equal opportunity experience. We want to make sure that everybody has an equal experience, a positive experience, a fulfilling experience. So therefore, we should make all of our sites accessible to everyone. Let's now talk about one of the first things you want to set up when you are making an accessible training module. And that's going to be all of your project information. And this is going to be good for when you're even creating anything that you want to publish, if you'd like to put it into your player. If you want to review some of the options for working with your players, you can check out one of our earlier videos. But let's go ahead and go under the hood a little bit, under the File menu, and come way down here to Project Info. And you're going to see this is going to take us to our preferences, believe it or not. But within preferences, you're going to see we have all these little tabs here, including the Project tab. And then you have a sub-tab here that says Information. Now, the metadata that we talked about in the earlier video is right here, where we have project information, and then you have all this information right here that a visually impaired screen reading software can actually read to you. So they would like to know some information about it. Who's the author? What's the website connection to it? Okay, when is the copyright, the description, anything else that you want to see here. Okay, so all that stuff, you want to make sure that you have this form filled out to give everybody an equal experience around this, okay? Because that screen reader will find this and the person can know a little bit more about it. Now, if we go into another setting within here, you're going to see that there is this publish settings. And then right here, you have this option for enable accessibility. We want to make sure that this, in fact, is checked, because therefore, when you do that, then it sets it in motion. So when it finally gets published, it sends a message to the screen reading software to make it so all the things that we're going to do after this, including the alt tags and all of our tab orders and all that stuff, then become available for the screen reading software. You'll also see here is another one. I'll go ahead and zoom in on this. Restrict keyboard tabbing to slide items only. That's really up to you, but this is a reference to the tab order that we talked about earlier. So now if I turn this on, say restrict keyboard tabbing to slide items only, meaning that it's not going to accidentally kind of like slip off into something else, right? That it might actually only go onto what's on the slide as opposed to potentially what's on the player, right? So you really want to test this out if possible, if you have access to the screen reading software. Okay, so stay tuned. We're going to get into another lesson after this, but this is going to be the first thing that you want to do regardless of what you do after this to establish that relationship with the screen reading software with your module. One of the key components of working with accessibility is naming your slides, because the screen reader will look at the name of the slide and also read it out loud. So very simple, very straightforward process. You can see here how I have my slides, and each of them are named. Title slide, benefits of running intro, benefits of running video. Now we can see here over on the right-hand side, it shows me that that is my title slide. This is my benefits of running. Okay, you can see that. That's how we name it. By default, you are not going to see the name of the slide, so we have to do that. So this one right here has no name. Okay, so I'm just going to go call this knowledge check number 1. Okay, and now this has a slide name and label, and therefore we will have no problems with our screen readers now reading it. Okay, so just quick lesson on that, and make sure you're doing that for a variety of different purposes, not just for accessibility, but just for navigating from slide to slide, just good organization as a whole, but just throw that out there as a quick lesson on accessibility. In this lesson, we are going to discuss alt text. So many assistive technologies such as Windows Eye and JAWS have screen readers that allow the images to be described to the user. Okay, but normally they cannot see an image, so we need to put in descriptive text around that. Now, in this particular timeline, we will see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 images. We'll see we have some images here, right? You'll also see we have an image here, etc. Now, many times you're going to have images that are just going to be kind of decorative text. You don't necessarily need to put screen reading descriptors on there because it might just be a little bit of a distractor. It's not really necessary. So if it's just basic, just kind of background or just sort of decorative, you can probably just skip it. Okay, but use your judgment. Okay, now this particular slide has 1, 2, 3, 4 images. Now they're kind of stacked on top of each other. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm just going to go ahead and just hide all of them except for this one. So therefore, I'm just going to be working with this one. And I'm just going to go through each of these. Now, I am going to put a descriptor for this. So how do I do that so the screen reader can then know what is on the screen and describe it to the user? Very simply, I select the image, and then I come way over here within my properties panel, and I click on this little drop down, and you're going to see it says accessibility. And then very simply, I have this nice little dialog box that's going to pop up. And you'll notice how auto label is checked. And it says here, if auto label is checked, then the accessibility name and description are auto generated in the published output. Do I want that? I'm not sure if I really trust it. So I'm going to go and uncheck that. And then I'm going to put in one simple name, and then I'm also going to put in a more detailed description. Okay, so this is Samantha, okay, narrator, okay, and then I'll just say Samantha standing with her hands in front, smiling. Okay, put that whatever order you want. Okay, that's good. And now I have that as my alt text. Okay, so therefore my screen readers like JAWS or Windows Eye is going to read that to the user. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and just blot that out, come to this one here, make sure I'm now on this, and you can see, great. I will continue on. I'll do one more. Accessibility, uncheck this. Okay, so Samantha, narrator. Okay. Samantha smiling with her mouth open, speaking with one finger up. Okay, clicking OK. Now, just a little bit of information about what you want to put in there. You don't want to be so descriptive where you're basically saying what color shirt she's wearing, or if you have a building or something like that, you don't need to put into every single detail of a building. Like an example is a hospital. Okay, if there's a hospital there, you can say it's a hospital. Maybe you say it's a big hospital. Okay, you wouldn't say that it's just a building, but you don't need to say it's a hospital that's 19 stories high, that has this lettering on it and all that kind of stuff. Just as much information, but not so much. If you have, let's say, 3 women in the picture and those 3 women are nurses, you wouldn't just say 3 women, you would say 3 nurses, okay? So you want to be as specific as possible without going into so much detail that's not absolutely necessary, okay? Now again, I would go through all of my slides and I'd find these relevant images of what needs to have the alternative text on there and put it on there. Now again, I would skip the ones that are going to have extra background and things like that that aren't absolutely necessary to be described. That might just be a little bit of a distractor for the user. Okay, so keep this in mind. Absolutely imperative to have an equal opportunity for all users. In this lesson on accessibility, we're going to discuss the importance of working with slide notes and the importance of slide notes working with closed captioning as well as our screen readers. So you will notice here that this particular slide has a bunch of audio on there. So if I go ahead and play this.
It's a running module. In this module, you will learn about the various benefits.
Okay, so there is some audio on there. Now I want to have some slide notes that are going to reflect that. For what purpose? For accessibility purposes, right? So when I finally do publish this and I have people who are using screen readers, they can actually have that be read to them, right? Which is fantastic. But we also want to have it for closed captioning so that can be seen and read just the same. Okay, so slide notes are going to be very important for us. So let's just learn a little bit about slide notes. Let's learn about where we can access our slide notes and even add on slide notes. So if we go over to here to the window menu, and then we come down here to slide notes, you'll notice that my timeline now gets broken up into 2 panels, and you will see here I have some pre-existing slide notes right here. To add on slide notes, it's super easy. You just simply click on the plus sign, and then you can add on a slide note, and then you can see bam, 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 there they are. Okay, very cool. Now you'll also notice a few other options here, right? You want to convert this text to speech, right? It'll allow you to do that. We talk about closed captioning a little bit. You want that to be part of closed captioning? Absolutely. So you want all these things checked, all right? But now I want to import these slide notes into my module. So earlier, if you remember, when I clicked on my image here, I went over to here to this little flyout menu and I chose accessibility and I had all these options there. But guess what happens now when I click on nothing, right? I'm not clicking on an image per se. I'm clicking in this kind of pasteboard area. Then I choose my little hamburger menu over here, and notice I'm going to choose accessibility this time. And guess what? I now have a completely different dialog box for slide accessibility and the ability to import these slide notes into here for my screen reader technology, for my assistive technology. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you can see, bam, there it is. Hello and welcome. In this module, you will learn and let's begin. Fantastic. So my screen reader will be very happy with that bit of information, and so will my user. I click OK, and that's great. Okay, and now that's embedded into there. But now let's talk about the closed captioning aspect of things. I'm going to go back to my timeline, and I want you to notice again that I have my little wavelength of sound down below. This is where my audio is. I need to get into my editing view for my audio in order to see my closed captioning, right, and be able to see where it's going to be sort of matched up at each individual part, but then also be able to customize my closed captioning to make it so it's a certain font, a certain size, and a certain width, and that's what we're going to learn. Okay, so how do I edit this? Very simply, I can just go ahead and just double click on this. That's my favorite way to do it. And this takes me to my slide audio dialog box. And you'll notice that there are 3 tabs up on top, including this one that says closed captioning. So I'm going to click on that. And you're going to see here that now I have all my captions inside of here, right? All my individual slide notes are now in here. Because remember earlier how I clicked on those boxes? They're now going to show up here as a result. Okay, really, really cool. All right, now, if they're not there already, you can very easily add them on. Okay, and you can also set the timing for when they're going to actually come up in the sound. So here's our sound right here. I'm going to go ahead and play it. And I want you to notice these little yellow little playheads here.
Hello and welcome to the benefits of running module. In this module, you will learn about the various benefits of running. You will also learn about the techniques to run correctly. Let's begin. Okay, very good. Now you may have also noticed that as I went from one little yellow playhead to the other, this actually switched going from one closed captioning item to the other. Okay, so really nice how that works. I'll do that one more time just for the first and second one. Notice the black bar. It's going to go to the next one, etc. Okay, now take a look at this here. I want you to notice how I can actually scrub this. And as I scrub this over here, I want you to notice we have the start time and the end time of this caption. When it's going to begin, when is it going to end, right? So you actually can sort of see it kind of visually based off of the sound waves, right? So you can actually hear it and see it at the same time. Now, one of these is a little bit off. So you can see, here's my... You will learn about the various benefits of running. You will also learn about the techniques to run correctly. So this one's a little off. So I just need to very easily click and drag this. So the let's begin is this last part here. Let's begin. Perfect. Let's begin. Okay, so now I have that more or less set up. Okay, very good. And if I wanted to, I can edit any of these things, but it's linked up to what the audio is, so I'm probably not going to change all that.
All right. But now the next part is going to give me the ability to then customize the closed captioning. All right. So I do that by going over to this little gear icon right there, my CC settings. I click on that and you're going to see that I have some choices here. Do you want to show closed captioning? Yes, I do. Okay, very good. And am I going to be doing this settings for the whole project or for this individual slide? Now, what this setting is a little bit deceiving, but it's actually saying, hey, these changes that I make to my closed captioning formatting, what do you want that to be for? Okay, I want to apply this to the whole project. Okay. So I just say, okay there. All right. And then I can now go back to show closed caption. It kind of resets itself. All right. And then I can now make these changes. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I don't want Times Roman. I'm going to go in and do trebuchet. Okay. And then I can go ahead and just, okay, what size do I want this to be? Do I want to be centered? Right. All those different things here very easily. All right. So I'm actually going to make my width and height a little bit kind of wider. First of all, right, I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag that. I really like that, about 50%. That's pretty good. Now that I see it looking like that, now I can actually make some adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and do some alignment so that centers nicely. Okay, maybe I'm going to make this kind of a bright yellow color. Nope, I'm definitely not going to do that. Let's maybe do almost kind of like charcoal gray. That's not so bad. I like that. And you can also set the background. Maybe I'm going to try yellow in this case. Oh, that's not bad, actually. Makes it stand out for people. Really nice. I can maybe bring down the opacity or up the opacity, whatever you want to do to really make it stand out. Some other options you might want to do is, if is it too close to the edge or not, that's going to be your Y value. So you can see here, I can actually bring that. So it's going to be a little bit further away. My X value is going to be left and right. So let's just see, make sure that's nice and centered. You can play around with all that stuff there. Okay. Now you also have an option here to override slide level settings with project settings. Okay. So if there's any kind of settings you've set on the slide, you can say, listen, this is a project level thing. Go and override everything, right? In this case, it doesn't necessarily matter for me. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply and then hit close. All right. Then I'm ready to save this because I'm now all set with how this is going to be, right? So I click save. I click close, and now when I'm ready to present this and I'm ready to publish it, I'll be able to see my closed captioning. So let's go ahead and test it out in our player to see the closed captioning. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a preview of the next 5 slides, and I'm going to see some beautiful closed captioning. Going to test it out, see if it's going to work.
Hello and welcome to the benefits of running module. In this module, you will learn about the various benefits.
Very cool. That shows up. However, you want to give your users the option to be able to turn it off and turn it on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just stop doing this for right now, but I like the way this looks. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. But I want to actually put it so the user has the ability to turn it off and turn it on in the player. So if we go over here to project, I'm going to go over here to my skin editor. What I want to do is come over to here to my closed captioning button, turn that on. Okay, and you'll see now it's going to show. Now if I go ahead and see it here, I'll be able to, won't be able to play it necessarily, but I'll be able to see there's my closed captioning button, right? But now notice that I have my closed captioning option and I can say settings. And now this is going to take me back to where I just was before. So if I decide, you know what, I'm not really sure if I like it like this, I can make some changes to it to make it so it's going to maybe be a little bit less kind of yellow, right? So let's just go ahead and kind of bring that down a bit or bring it up a little bit or do something completely different, right? So cool, I can just go ahead and make those changes right here on the fly. Pretty much have the same options as I did before. Close this out, now preview it. And guess what? I'm going to see my closed captioning with all the changes.
Hello and welcome to the benefits of running module. In this module, you will learn about the various benefits of running. You will also learn about the technique.
And I might want to fix some of this as well. Okay, so that's an easy fix. We learned how to do that before. But the thing I want you to understand is that the user now has the ability to turn this on and off. Okay, but it's really important. We test it out. We come back and forth. Make sure it's not coming off of the margin. Make sure it's clearly readable. Make sure that it's not going too far into the padding. So of course, like anything else, testing and evaluation is key. All right, so this is an absolutely important thing here. And understand, again, it starts with all of our slide notes, which then gives birth to all of our closed captioning. And then that allows us to then put the timing in for all the closed captioning that's going to sync up with our audio. And then we can customize our closed captioning, right? Meaning the font, the formatting, and the placement and everything. And then ultimately we bring it into our player, but we have to make sure that we have turned that on. We have activated the closed captioning, and then ultimately we have the button that's on there for the user to then turn it on or off. Okay, go ahead, pause the video, practice that, practice everything we've done up to this point. We'll do one more lesson on accessibility, and we'll see you soon. In this lesson on accessibility, we are going to talk about tab order. So many screen reading software like JAWS and like Windows Eye rely on using the tab key to navigate through different components, in particular components like buttons, to establish an order of how to navigate through that particular slide. Okay, so in this particular slide, we have 1, 2, 3 buttons on here. And if when I click on it, you'll be able to see the names of the buttons and everything. I have Smart Shape 5, Smart Shape 4, and Play Lesson button. Now, when I go back over here to my little lines over here for my little hamburger menu, while nothing is selected, I'm going to be able to see something called tab order. Now, how do I want my user to go through this set of buttons in terms of the order, the logical flow of how this is? So you can see this goes play button 1 and then, Smart Shape 4. I don't even know what that is, right? Is that, I click on it, it tells me that. Okay, that's okay. But you know what though? I think I should probably name it what it actually is. So, good lesson here. Let's name our objects, right? For everybody's usage, right? For us as developers, as collaborators, but definitely for making it user-friendly for all of our users to give everybody an equal experience. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this, and I'm going to go over to here to this Smart Shape 4, and I know this is my home button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to here to my properties panel. I'm just going to say home _ button. Okay, what's this one? I'm actually going to make this play lesson. Let's make that button too, so people know exactly what it is. Then I'm going to go over to here. This is my next lesson button. Next lesson button. Okay, and notice that you don't have to put in the underscores. It does it for you when you hit enter. Okay, very good. Guess what? Now when I go back into my tab order, you will see, great, there they are. And this is going to give me the ability to then change the order of how this is, right? So this is play button, great. It's going to go from left to right, and then bam, that's exactly how I want them to tab through. Okay, so if these were in a completely different order and then I had to change it, right, you can see I can very easily make this go up, right? So make that go up, make that go back down. See that? Very easily I can do that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at another example. Let's go back to our benefits of running. And down over here, you'll notice that there's a bunch of buttons that are going to trigger something. All right, so each of these things here, you can see this is my waist, this is my arms, this is my chest, right? All that stuff here. So you can see how they're all nicely named as they should be, maybe with the exception of this background one, but that's okay. But of course, we do want to name things appropriately. But you can see here as I click on this is ankles, etc. Now, in the order of how these things are here on my timeline, is that the order of how things are on my tabs? So that's important for us to identify. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up again to my tab order, click on that, and you'll see that when I click on head, okay, that's up there. What happens next? So chest is up there. You know what? I think since we go from left to right, I'm actually going to make this go higher. Okay, I like that. So it's going to go this way, that way. What's next? All right, that one, not sure. What's that one? Let's say, you know what? Okay, arms. Okay, that's pretty good. I do like that. Okay, and then waist. Okay, I think these are pretty good. All right, yeah, that seems right to me. Okay, very good. So they're all named, okay, including my continue button, which is great. Okay, and I might want to specify exactly maybe a little bit more clearly. This is continue button, so people understand exactly what that is. And the tab order is exactly how I want it to go, from left to right, kind of zigzagging, so people understand kind of where they are. And the order of things are going to be very important. That's what the tab order is about. All right. So to make yourself 508 compliant, these are the things you have to consider. Okay. Working with tab order, working with alt tags, working with our slide notes and our closed captioning, working with our project information. Okay. All of these things are so important to give equal opportunity to all users. Okay. So please practice. Please make sure you perfected this, and please make sure you apply this to all of your training modules. And welcome back, everybody. In this lesson, we are going to talk about branching. Now, branching can work in a variety of different scenarios, including working with our buttons, where we're going to go from one adventure to the other, but it could also work with quizzes. So we're going to talk about quizzing and branching in a later lesson. But in this lesson, we're going to have our users kind of choose their own adventure. Right now we have level 1, which kind of live right over here. We have level 2, it's going to kind of come down a little bit further down here. Then we also have our quiz that we want our user to go to. Now, I want to introduce you to the branching scenario panel. If we go over here to the window menu, we come over here to branch view, we're going to see here that everything just kind of goes in a very linear fashion here. And you can see how we can kind of move through everything right here. Got a lot of slides there. We can kind of see them all together just like that. Okay, you'll also notice how we can kind of zoom out a little bit. You can see a little bit more, or you can zoom in on these just the same. But right now, again, looking at my branching, it really shows me that like everything is very linear. What the branching view is going to allow us to do is to be able to see kind of what's what, where things are going, especially when you have a lot of different scenarios happening. You want to be able to kind of track everything, all right? So this kind of viewing going in and out is going to really help you. So we're going to explore this branching view in great detail, but we're also going to now create our buttons to be able to make things do what we want them to do. Okay, but let's just first check out a few things within this panel here. When I move my mouse over, notice this highlights in bright green there. Good, I can just go ahead and select it. And you'll see that when I click on it, it's going to give me the name of the slide and any kind of action that may happen on the slide level. Not on any buttons, but basically on a slide level, right? Which you can make changes to. So it's telling me kind of what's going on here, right? You'll also notice that I have little minus signs here. So if you want to go ahead and collapse that and expand it so you're seeing a lot less. You'll also notice that I can just simply double click on this if I want to get a bigger version of it in case I want to see it. And believe it or not, each of these individual buttons is also clickable. See that? So you can see level 1, it just has no, you click on level 1, you can see it's going to say continue, Smart Shape 394. Click on that one, Smart Shape 395, just saying continue, and you can see here's this one. Okay, so badly named objects, I'm going to fix that. Also, no action is happening. So I'm going to go ahead and just double click back on that as well. In a little bit, we're going to explore some of these guys here, which is going to help us kind of group things a little bit in case we want to have a little bit less space taken up. All right, so let's just get out of this for right now, and then we're going to come back to it in a little bit. We're going to see what our options are. Now, I want to just connect this, so it's going to go right to this next one here. So very simply, probably already doing that, but I know that this is a button. Again, this is just a shape, and you can see it says use as a button, which I've done that. And as a result, I have this set for actions. If it's just a regular shape and it's not a button, you will not have these options here. Just keep that in mind. So you want to make sure that we say use as button. And then we have here on success, what do you want to have happen? I want it to go to a particular slide. Okay, so what is that slide I want to go to? Just so happens to be level 1. That's perfect. Now, while I'm here, I think it's a good idea for us to start naming our objects. So I go over here to my level 1 button. I go over here to my timeline. You can see here is Smart Shape 394. Don't like that. So I'm going to rename that to level 1 button. Great. Let's do this one. That's going to be level 2 button. And what's this guy here? This is going to be our quiz button. Okay, good. Now let's go ahead and take them to where we want them to be. Let's go here to action. This time again, I'm going to say jump to slide. And then I'm going to find my level 2 slide name here. Okay, so take a look at a lot of these, right? They have slide names on them. We talked about this earlier in our accessibility lessons. Very important for a variety of reasons to name your slides. And in this case, to jump to the slide, I can identify where things are going to be. Okay. Now for this next one, for the quiz, I want you to see how we can group slides together. Okay, because grouping slides is going to be really helpful just to have them all in one bunch. But it's also going to be really nice for organizing your content and also moving it around so you don't have to go ahead and select a number of different slides. All right, so we're going to see this is going to benefit for us in the branching view as well. So let's come down here to our, where it starts off with multiple choice here, right? And all of these are going to be my quiz questions, right? I'm just going to go here from 22 all the way to, where is it here? Lots and lots here. I'm going to go over to here to 32, right? And I've just held down the shift key and I've selected all of these. All right, now what I'm going to do is simply right click on any one and you'll notice there's this option to group. Just like how we can group objects on the slide, we can group entire slides together. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create. And now there it is. I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. I'm going to call this quiz slide group. Wonderful. There that is. That's great. All right. And you can see that's all grouped together. You'll notice there's this little blue arrow there. I can click on that to expand it. Click on it again to collapse it. All right. Now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and go back over here to my quiz. Click on that. And you'll notice now I'm going to go over to here to my Actions tab. Click over to here. I'm going to say, what do I want to do? Jump to slide. And where do I want to go? I'm going to go down here to quiz, multiple choice. Very nice. Okay, so I'm pretty much set up now. But now the fact that I have these individual buttons here, I think I want to start to see kind of what's going on here, where things are going. And that is where my branching scenarios are going to come into play. So let's come back now to Window. Let's go ahead and go over here to Branching View. And I want you to see now how this is going to give me a nice little story about how things are all set up here. So you can see it starts off here, and then you can see this goes to here, this goes to here, this goes to here. Right? You can even see it down here as well, and it's a little bit neater than it was before, and it really kind of tells my story. It chunks everything out for me. All right? Now you'll also notice that I have my quiz slide group all over here now, because that actually helps me kind of collapse everything so it doesn't take up so much space. If I were to click on this, I'll be able to see everything, right? All displayed out like that. But I also don't need to see that, so I can go ahead and collapse that just the same. Okay, so you can see there's some nice benefits of that. And you might want to group a bunch of things here as well. Now, let's say I wanted to group this one and this one as a particular kind of set here, these three. Now, I can do that from this menu up here just the same. So if you realize from this bird's eye view that you want to group things out, you can very easily do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of marquee over these three. All right, and you can see little black boxes around them. And you'll notice over here in the upper left, I now have this Create Slide Group. I click on that, and then you can see, bam, it's going to give me the option. Okay, I'll say Level 2 Intro Slides. Great, there that is. Okay, so that also collapses and expands it. I can move my mouse over to see what they are. Okay, this one, same thing. Quick little sneak peek at that. Okay, so really great way to kind of organize your content. Now, after you got it all set up and you're happy with your branching scenarios and where things are going, you may want to communicate this, right? You may want to kind of study it. You may want to kind of bring this into a meeting. Okay, so what you might want to do is export this. Okay, so you'll see that they give you this nice little option here to export your branching view. So when you click on that, you're going to see it gives you the ability to export into a bitmap file. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that into my downloads folder, and I'm just going to go ahead and just give it a name. Okay, so this is my call center branch. Click save. It's successfully exported. Let's go into my downloads. You can see there it is. Open it up, and beautiful. There I have it. That's right. Nice bird's eye view, exactly how things are going to go. Does this all make sense? Bam, fantastic. Okay, so let's come back now to where we were. Okay, close this out. Pretty happy with that. Gives me some nice layout, some nice strategy, bird's eye view, and we are good to go. All right, so practice that. Okay, create something that's going to have potentially different adventures for your users. Where it might go, you can certainly use this one if you want to, but it's a nice way to basically kind of know where things are going, right? Know kind of what the lay of your land is. So when things get kind of out of control, it's going to allow you to kind of really understand kind of where things are, where they're going, where they're coming from, and be able to stay organized with all of those branching scenarios. Okay, practice that up and we'll see you in the next lesson. And welcome back, everybody. In this segment, we are going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into quizzing. And this is a little bit more advanced. So in this segment, we're going to be exploring some more kind of complex and possibly lesser known and lesser used question and quizzing techniques. And you're going to see that even though they're lesser used, doesn't mean that they have lesser value. So what are we going to cover in this section? In particular, we're going to cover question pools. And question pools allow us to create a pool of questions or several different pools of questions so we can organize our questions, we can tap into them at a variety of different times, we can create random questions based off of those pools. Okay, so you may have just 100 questions that you just keep adding more and more into those question pools as time goes on. Maybe you've got different people who are coming up with different questions. And again, they may be for different purposes and different topics, and maybe even on different timelines. You just want to kind of keep adding on to those, right? So we're going to learn how to create those question pools. We're going to learn how to get organized with them, but then also insert questions at a variety of different times from random questions, right? So it's like, all right, I don't even want to have to think about it. I know we've got 100 really good quality questions. Let's go ahead and just access the pool and bring them in, okay? We're also going to learn how to import questions from CSV files and also what's called gift files. Now, the purpose of those are going to be, well, you know what? Not everybody's going to have access to Captivate, right? Or maybe you don't want to have to use Captivate to organize all your questions. So you might do it in a text file, right? Using like TextPad or something like that, or Notepad. But you also might want to use Excel, right? Or a CSV file to be able to organize it, right? And you're going to see that there's a lot of really neat tools and some kind of codification to be able to actually create all of those, okay? And then we're going to go into creating drag and drop interactions and a few other more advanced interactions, okay? So hang tight, stay tuned, and we're going to learn quite a bit, and we'll see you in the next lesson. In this first lesson on advanced quizzing, we are going to explore question pools. So again, just to review, question pools are going to allow us to create a variety of different, let's call them buckets, for all of our quiz questions. And they may have different purposes. They may be done by different people. They may be done over time, whatever it is. Now, we can ultimately label those question pools. We can ultimately access those question pools and tap into them by inserting a variety of different random questions. So you don't really have to think about it. Okay, so there's a lot of really nice value and purpose around working with question pools. Now, how do we do that? First thing I want you to see here is that within the window menu, we're going to have a question pool panel. So I open that up and you can see here, I have nothing going on here except for this right here where it says pool number 1. And if I click on that drop down, you're going to see there was only one pool. By default, when you start any type of Captivate project, you only have one pool of questions. That's all going to change in a little bit, so then we can just start randomly putting things inside of different pools, or maybe not so random with some different intention. Okay. Now you'll also notice within this panel, you have the ability to just add questions if you want to, right? Just like how you normally would. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a question, and it's going to end up inside of, guess what? Pool 1. So I do that. And then I could say, okay, multiple choice. I want to do one multiple choice that is graded. I click OK. And now you can see, great, there it is. And it ends up in this pool and I can see it, right? Just like that. So maybe you're doing this on the fly. Maybe you do not have pre-existing questions already like I do, and you want to just create a question right here, ad hoc, and then put it in there. And then you can certainly put all of your content here, like you've probably seen before. And if you haven't, go ahead and review our first segment on Captivate. But you can see you can put all that stuff in here, and then this is going to end up inside of pool 1. That's great. Okay, so it's as easy as that. And once again, if you click on add question, you can add in a variety of different types of questions. Okay, and once again, go ahead and review our first lesson in Captivate. All right, so that's great. Now, the next thing I want you to see here is the ability to get into the question pool manager. So kind of hiding in sort of plain sight as if it does not want to be found is this question pool manager. I click on that, and you're going to see here is my question pool manager, and we have exactly one question pool right now. Okay, so if I click on that now, you're going to see it might actually have some information here, right? It's going to have some information here. Okay, one graded. Okay, so it just tells me there's only one question inside of this. Okay, that's good. But you know what though? I'd actually really like to start naming these, right? So I have 3 people on my team, and we're all going to start adding in different things here. So if I just simply double click on this, you can see here's going to be Dave. Go ahead and add on another pool, right? Super easy. Okay, that's going to be Sammy. Okay, and this is going to be Barbara. All right, so very good. So I'm going to have one question inside of Dave. That's me. Formerly, pool 1. Sammy has 0 questions. Okay, and then Barbara also has 0, but that's all going to change now at this point. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just close this out for right now. And I want you to see now, when I come back to my question pool panel, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 different pools that I can access. Okay, so there's Dave, still has that one question. Here is Sammy, 0, and as you can expect, Barbara also has 0. Okay, so really nice, fantastic. Now, let's go ahead and just start building this out, right? So we can actually start putting some of these questions inside of here, right? So we have questions that already exist. Okay, we just learned how we can add questions in very easily on the fly, but now we're going to insert questions from things that already exist, from questions that already exist. Okay, so how do you do that? Incredibly easy. If you just simply right click, you're going to see that there is an option here to move question to, and look at that. All 3 of our pools now appear. So this is also going to go to Dave. Okay, very good. Okay, this one, let's move this question to Sammy. All right, let's move actually these 3. Just clicked on one, held on the shift key, and then clicked on the third one, move question 2, and let's just add that to Barbara. Cool, doing great. All right, right click. Let's give Sammy some of these. Okay. Okay, so now let's just double check to see what's actually going on now. If I come back to here, let's go see how Dave's doing. Oh, 4, he only had 1. Now he's got 2. And Sammy had 0. Now Sammy's got 3. And Barbara's in the lead now with all these questions here. Okay. So really nice, really easy, really straightforward. Okay, so just for the purposes of efficiency, let me just go ahead and add everybody now to Dave. Okay, wonderful. All right, now if I go back to my pool manager, okay, there we go. There's Dave, whole bunch there. Very good. Sammy, Barbara. Okay, now very easily I can now delete these if I want to. You see that? I can go ahead and say, you know what? I'm actually not going to put that one in there. Are you sure you want to delete this? Select that. You know what? I changed my mind. You see, it gives me, you know, a nice little choice in case I don't want to use that. Okay. Okay. Now, some other things you can do while you are inside of the question pool manager. If you just simply right click on any of these, notice you have the option once again to insert a question slide. And it takes me to this friendly and familiar dialog box. Bam, bam, bam. You could do all those things if you like. Right click. You can also delete, and then also notice the keyboard shortcuts for all of these. You can copy questions. You can delete them, right? So let's just say I wanted to copy this. Come over to here, copying it. Let's go over to Sammy. Right click. I'm going to go ahead and paste. See? Really nice. So I just might want them in more than one, right? For whatever reason. Sometimes that could potentially backfire if you're doing randomized questions, but just keep that in mind that it is a possibility if you want to do that and then go back and then delete it from another one, right? So just keep that in mind. If you are going to be copying and then pasting it someplace else, you may see that duplicate random questions might come in. So if that's your intention to copy and paste it and you don't want that to happen, just go back to the original and then just go ahead and delete it. Okay, some other options here. If you wanted to lock the slide or hide the slide, you can do that too. So once you are finally accessing these, you can just make sure you have this level of functionality on it. Okay, so in a future lesson, we are going to talk about importing both GIFT files and also CSV files. Okay, and as I said earlier, we have the ability to delete them just by clicking on this. And also you can go ahead and click on the plus sign, and that takes you to that same option for inserting brand new questions. Okay, excellent. So now we are ready to go to now start using these. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this out. And how do we bring in some of those random slides? So currently I have no questions here. Okay, and I want to bring in a random question. So very simply, I go back to my quiz panel, and you're going to see here I have this option for random question slide. Okay, so the implication here is that I'm going to put in just pretty much as like rolling the dice on any one of the questions from my pool. So when I choose that, I want you to notice how this comes up and it says random question linked to Dave. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool. All right, let me do another one. Do random question. I have another one. Random question linked to Dave. All right, well, you know what? I think Barbara really deserves a chance. She's got some good questions. So how do I make it so it's linked to somebody else? So if we go over to here now to our quiz panel over here inside of our properties, you're going to see that there is a question pool section right there. Okay, so notice it says Dave inside the question pool. I don't want that to be Dave. I want that to be Barbara. And now that's linked to Barbara. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do another one. And notice here we have Control Q, so I'll start to use that. All right, and then this is going to be Sammy. All right, I'll do Control Q. That's great. I love it. Yeah, let's do Dave again. That's great. Let's do another one. And let's go back to Sammy. All right, so that's pretty good. So equal representation, and now we're going to be looking at a variety of different quiz questions from a variety of different sources and potentially different people or with different intentions, but we don't really know which one we're going to get because presumably they're all of equal value. But if you might have some that are going to be kind of relegated to older questions, you know, things like that, they're like, okay, you know what? That's going to be in that other question pool, and you'll just know that. You just won't access those. So it's a really great way to stay organized with all of your questions. Okay, so let me go ahead now, and I'm going to preview this so you can see how the questions are going to come up. And let's just go ahead and view it in our browser. All right, and there we go. Let's go ahead and hit submit. Okay, you can create the following in. It's just, these are going to be multiple. Okay, that's great. And then, okay, not very good. Software demonstrations, possibly. Okay, you can open up libraries from any. All right, finally got it. But you can see what we're doing here, right? So these are actually built in from a variety of different questions that we started from. Okay, now the next question that you are wondering is, well, listen, I did all of this inside of this particular file, inside of the question pool file, but how do I get them inside of another file, inside of another Captivate deck? So I have this blank new one here, okay, and I want to be able to, let me just go ahead and just get rid of these. Okay, and if I go to my question pools here, you can see quiz, and then I'm going to go to my question pool manager. You'll see I have no question pools. Uh-oh, wait a second, I did all that work. What's going on here? So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to import from another document, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go to quiz, and you can see here is import question pools. Okay, so name of this is called question pools. Okay, and I'll have to remember, where did I save this? Okay, this is inside the courseware. Okay, that's great. All right, and then let me go ahead and just close this out. I'm going to save it, close it out, and now let's go back to the quiz menu, import question pools, and who am I doing it from? I'm going to be doing it from question pools. Okay, that's great, and check it out. There's Dave, Sammy, and Barbara. All three pools are available. However, if I don't want to use all of them, or just you only want one of them, bam, I can do that. So this is a tremendous, tremendous time saver, because that way I do not have to reinvent the wheel for a brand new training module, right? So this, I think, is kind of the meat of this process, right? Like really probably more value than anything is the ability to share all of your questions from module to module, right? Because maybe certain things have changed, right? Or maybe, you're evolving somehow, or maybe you're just, sharing a lot of the same answers and questions across the board, but it's a slightly different training. You can borrow them from people, right? So one of your pools might be just general questions about the company. So maybe you don't want all the rest of them because there's going to be a little more specific about that product, but you still have one pool that's like that could benefit 20 other modules. So you would organize yourself to have it so that one question pool is good for 20 different types of modules, or these other two pools are just for that specific thing or that specific time period, whatever it's going to be. But you really want to start thinking about that. It's like, okay, so how can I start to use question pools to optimize my process? All right, so let's go ahead and click OK. Tells me it's importing. That's great. The magic is happening. Completely different training module. All right, and now let's check it out. So I'm going to go over to here to still cranking up. Wait for it to finish. Okay, very good. Got to jump the gun a bit. Okay, and very good. You will see that I won't even have to go very far because the question pool panel is open here. And you can see there is Dave, Sammy, and Barbara. What's pool one? There ain't nothing there, so I should probably get rid of that one. Let's go to Dave. Okay. All right, and bam, there they are. All right, let's go back to our quiz. Let's go back to our question pool manager. All right, let's get rid of pool one. I'm going to click on that, click OK, and nice. All is well with the world again. All right, so hopefully you can see there is so much value to this, just in terms of collaboration and efficiency and consistency. Okay, so question pools are absolutely invaluable. All right, so I encourage you, pause the video, practice up, see what you can do with what I have here, but maybe some of you are working with questions already. Start adding them to pools, okay? It doesn't have to be specific to that particular project. Remember, you can start importing them and exporting them out to other training modules as well. Okay, so practice that and we'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson on advanced quizzing, we are going to discuss importing questions. Okay, so we're going to be importing them in two different formats. And we're going to break this lesson down into two sub-lessons. Okay, so one is going to be importing the GIFT format, and the other is going to be importing from CSV files. Okay, so you may choose one or the other. You may be on a team that's have chosen one or the other, but these lessons are going to give you the tools to be able to make your choice and which is going to be better for you. So when we are importing questions from another format, the implication is that we are not necessarily creating the questions inside of Captivate. We may be creating our questions inside of a text file, right? So maybe you're using TextEdit or Notepad or any other kind of text editing software to do that. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, for you, you've got Captivate, but other people, you know what? Maybe they don't have Captivate, right? But they still want to be part of the team. They still want to build out questions. You might be working with a subject matter expert or SME, right? So they may be the ones developing questions. Okay, that's great, right? You don't have Captivate, but guess what? You can still be part of the process. All right. So with GIFT, there is a kind of special format, and same thing with the CSV, but we have to understand what that kind of syntax is. And it's a little bit complicated. So I'll show you a few different examples, and I'm going to show you how it's all done, how you can bring it in. But I would suggest on your own, maybe going a little bit deeper into seeing, okay, what is some of that syntax, right, to kind of really be able to study it. But these examples should be able to help you. So I'm going to go into my TXT file that I have created here. So this is this GIFT questions DC. All right, now we have a number of different questions here. Okay, you can see here is, who's buried in Grant's tomb? All right, it's pretty simple. All right, and again, this is just a TXT file. But now I want you to notice, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, how we have this little open bracket. Okay, we've got a little equal sign there. We got a little tilde curly thingy there, right? Blah, 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 blah. And then we have finally a close bracket. So we're going to see in a little bit how Captivate sort of transcribes this for us, okay, and how it interprets it. But for our purposes, basically, this is the question, okay? These are all of the answers. And guess what? The equal sign is telling Captivate to say, hey, this is the right answer, okay? So, okay, great. So I'm not even sure if this is the right answer because from my understanding is that no one is buried in Grant's tomb, okay? He's just entombed there somehow, okay, but he's not there. Okay, so anyway, we can change the answers very quickly and easily. All right, then we also have the potential to put in other things like this, right? And we're going to see, right, these are relatively optional, but this is kind of commenting it out, right? And you'll be able to see that there. Okay, that's great. But you'll see that, okay, there's different ways to present different things here. Okay, so you can see here as these like two little dots right there, right? The two little colons. That's going to present things in a slightly different way. But understand consistently, see that? There's our open bracket, right? And that's telling us there, okay? Bam. Okay, good. All right, now we also have the ability to put in feedback, okay? Look at that. There's a little hashtag there. Okay, great. Hashtag, right? Based off of each response. Okay, that's another part of the syntax. Okay, with this one, we have different types of abilities to say, hey, guess what? We are asking for two choices, okay? And then take a look at it. You can see here we have, right? They get how many points based off of it, negative, right? And then negative, right? Basically say, okay, these two are going to be giving you half, and this is also going to give you half of the total points awarded, okay? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, how we can do that inside of Captivate, but also with our CSV files. Okay, so great. And you can feel free to use this, right? If you just kind of put in your own questions right there to be able to, just put in the questions and then change your answers just like that and use this as a template. All right, so you can see here, this is going to be true, false. All right, and this is basically telling you, okay, so question, all right, true statement using the T style. Okay, great. True statement about Grant. Grant was buried in a tomb in New York City, and basically it's telling you that is the answer. It is true. Okay, so I want you can explore all these. We can go into some greater detail, but you can see here is 2 plus 2 equals, and then this is going to be a fill in the blank. Okay, you can see here is a match, right? We'll see how match works, right? With a little arrow there. Okay, great, we're matching it there. Okay, Moodle costs, and then bam, 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 lots of money, da, da, da. This is another kind of fill in the blank, all right? And then you can see here, another one that's gonna be kind of a multiple choice, but then it finishes on the other side, okay? And here's another match, okay? So it's gonna be a lot more sort of colorful for you at this point if we now see it in action, and then maybe we can come back here and deconstruct it, all right? But you may wanna do that on your own. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this out, all right? Now that we know kind of the syntax. And again, some of you may be like, oh my God, I'm dizzy already, which is totally understandable. And that's why I'm gonna show you the next lesson, all right, which is gonna be on the CSV, all right? But do not allow me to digress here. So let's go ahead and now import that gift file. So I'm gonna go over to here to quiz. And you're going to see here is this import gift format file. Okay, so I do that. And now we're going to see here is gift questions DC. Double click on that. And it's going to do its magic. It's parsing, it's rendering, putting everything in there. Okay, that's great. And then wait for it. And look at that. Every single one of the questions that we just read over are now brought in. And they're brought in using the quizzing format. Okay, so it's really absolutely amazing. So if I click on this one here, you will notice there's now this familiar tab called quiz, right? And you can see here, okay, that's great. So if I click on that, it tells me this is in fact a multiple choice. That's great. And it also tells me what the correct answer is. Okay, that's great. How cool is that? Here, I can now say, all right, this is how many answers I can have in there, but that's already set. But the points is going to be right here. All right, and then we come over to here. This one, what's the difference? This one actually has feedback associated with it, right? And that's where we saw that hashtag. So that's really nice. We can put that into the TXT file. All right. And of course, you're probably all familiar with all this stuff. If you're not familiar with it, go ahead and go back and review some of our earlier lessons. All right, but let's just go ahead and take a look at some of the other ones. Right? Earlier, we talked about how you can have more than one answer. All right, you can see here, this is going to be partial score. Let's come back to our quiz. You can see partial score as a result. Okay, that's great. So we're splitting those up. And all the same thing here. All right, let's continue on. True, false. All right, we saw how that was formatted. That's great. Go over to quiz. Come over to a different one. Guess what? This is going to be a fill in the blank. All right, so you can see when I click on that, this is now giving me what the choices are, the correct choices could be. So we want to give people the option in case maybe they are putting in just the last name, they're going to be putting in his middle initial or whatever it is. You can see all that stuff, right? So in a second, we're going to come back to that TXT file to be able to deconstruct that. But you can see how nice it is, how it just allows you to bring it all in, no problem. Okay, so let's come back to here one more time. It tells me this is the short answer. Okay, great. And all that other stuff there if you want to make changes to it. So just because we created it in the TXT file doesn't mean that we can't make changes to it after the fact, right? So if I just change this and I just want to put in, something else, I want to allow for like misspellings or something like that, I can add on some other ones if I want to. Okay, so just remember again, the purpose of this could be certainly for efficiency and speed, but also for collaboration with other people. Okay, that they may be putting these things together and you might be the one developing a template for them. Okay, so you click on that and then bam, here are the correct answers. And then here's one that's a little bit more advanced. Okay, this is going to be the matching. All right, so you can see how it's all set up for me. Okay, great. And see, and these are all preset to be just as is, but you can maybe change those if you like. Okay, and what is this style question? This is going to be multiple choice, but notice how it's multiple choice, but you can put it right there in the middle. All right, and now finally, you'll notice that when I brought the quiz in, it also brought in the quiz results page for me. Okay, so if you haven't done that already, right, in previous lessons, you'll know how that you can actually bring in from your quiz preferences. You can go ahead and set all these things up on the back end, right? So when you go to your quiz menu and you go to your quiz preferences, you'll be able to see, right, this will allow you to actually set up some of these things here. And then once you're finally done, it's going to generate something like this. Of course, you can go ahead and change all those things if you like, right? It's up to you whether you want to report these or not. Okay, and you can see all of these options there. So again, this is a little more of an advanced lesson, so I'm not going to get into all of those details. So I suggest go ahead and review back to our first lesson on YouTube to be able to explore that. Okay, so now that we know a little bit more about what this is going to look like, let's come back to our TXT file. Let's take a look at the magic that was done here. Okay, you can see here, right? Very simple question there. And then here was question 1 named Grand Tomb. Okay, let's just see what that looks like here. All right, so we go back to here. Okay, so who's buried in Grant's tomb? Cool, right? And there it is. Very nice. Okay, and then we keep here. Okay, what 2 people are entombed? Okay, so what was that again? Oh yeah, that was 2 people, right? So that was, oh, okay, nice. Okay, great. So you can see that's there. Nice. Okay, what were some other kind of tricky ones there? Okay, with the matching. Oh, I see how they did that. Okay, that's pretty cool. Right, so really just go back and deconstruct this. All right, so really nice, good features to be able to do that. All right, and then maybe you want to explore some of the feedback ones as well. But just keep in mind, this is a nice, potentially fast way for you to collaborate, but also don't forget that even though you have imported it, doesn't mean you can't go ahead and make changes to these if you want, right? So just based on any of these other ones here that you put in there, you can go ahead and change some of the feedback items. You can change what the right answer is. You can even change the choices here, what they're going to be, just like how you normally would with any other kind of quiz. All right, so I suggest pausing the video, go back and practice, right? Go back, take a look at the TXT file, see if that works for you. And if not, we have alternatives for you, which is the CSV file, which is a nice little gift from Adobe. It's going to allow you to create it in a much more automatic way. All right, we'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to follow up on the last lesson about importing questions from a different format that is not Captivate. Okay, so earlier we did a TXT file format, and that is good, it's useful, but it could be a little bit confusing with all the coding and everything. So my preference is using this amazing macro-enabled Excel document that allows us to create our questions in a nice kind of fluid manner without having to worry about codification or anything like that, but still giving us the ability to collaborate with people outside of the Captivate environment and still start generating a series of different questions, okay? And have them imported into Captivate, no problem, okay? So first thing I want to talk about is this amazing tool that comes built into Captivate that's very hidden, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just show you how to get to it. So if we go into our C drive, okay, or depending on where your files are saved, okay, so if you're on a Mac, it's going to be inside of your application files. And here I am inside my C drive, and you're going to see here's my program files. And I'm going to go over to here to Adobe, and I'm going to go over to here to Captivate. And you're going to see that there is this folder here called Gallery. Okay, so I open that up, and then from here, I'm going to come down here to Quiz. Okay, I'm going to open that up, and you're going to see that there is this amazing CSV questions creation macro. Okay, and there's also going to be some sample questions available for me. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a look at both of those. But what I'd recommend you all do is copy this, right? It's there for you to basically take it out from here, right? Do whatever you're going to do, right click, copy, Command Control C, whatever, and just rescue it from here and then put it into your own personal folder, because what we're going to get is, and I've already given you this inside of the class files, but you're going to see here, we're going to get, right, this ability to work with these. Now I'm going to go ahead and just show you one that's already been complete, and then we're going to actually build it from scratch. Okay, so let's go ahead and just take a look at their first sample questions. So I'm just going to open that up. And you can see this is going to be our ultimate output. Okay, and then we're not actually generating it this way. We're going to do it in a little bit of a kind of more sort of automatic, kind of like less kind of codified, because this could be also a little bit intimidating too. But let's just take a look at what's actually happening here. I'm going to go ahead and just make this so it's a little bit easier to read for us. You can see here this is the codification that Captivate is going to need, right? So it's like, what question type is it? Multiple choice, true, false, all this of matching. Okay, fill in the blank. Okay, all these different things here, right? Then we have our answer options. Okay, let me just back up a little bit. Okay, so you can see question stem, right? That is basically what the question is. There's your answers, etc. It's going to go from there to there to there. Okay, and this is ultimately what we're going to give to Excel. Okay, but how do we even create this? And that's where the beautiful macro-enabled file comes in. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at one that has already been established. When you open up to the macro-enabled Excel document, you're going to see this is what it's going to look like. Okay, just notice down at the bottom we have instructions, CSV input form, and questions CSV. All right, good enough, but let's just go ahead and explore what instructions we have first of all. It's basically telling you what to do step by step in order to use this document. First thing you might need to do is enable editing. Okay, we're going to see that in just a second because this is a macro file. You have to authorize the editing enablement, right? So basically, because a macro file may have like viruses on it, right? It comes with its own types of Visual Basic coding that could potentially be problematic. So you have to enable it. You're saying, okay, cool, I get this, I support this, I'm not afraid of it. So you have to enable it. So just keep that in mind. All right, so it just gives you step-by-step what to do here, no problem. All right, and then you can see here, read the below instructions, okay? Basically, these are gonna be all the instructions on everything I just kind of more or less talked about, but it should be relatively straightforward. What's gonna be the question type, how many points you want to assign it, what's gonna be the question, here are all your different answers, things like that. And then sometimes you may see that there's gonna be variation depending on the different types of questions that you have, right? So a true false will have to have the words true and false in it, okay? In order to tell it that is something going to be the right answer, you have to put an asterisk next to it, okay? So you want to kind of study these, but Excel is pretty good about giving you, some errors in case you don't do it right. So just keep that in mind, all right? And then when you're finally done, you will export this into the CSV file format, all right? And that is how Captivate will ultimately read it. Okay, so these are all the instructions, right? So just check it all out, but I'm going to be giving you some instructions as well. All right, so now we go over here to the CSV input form, and this is where the magic happens, right? Because they've done so much work for you to be able to then say, hey, listen, what are your questions, okay? This is where you can just basically say, hey, listen, you know what? I don't want to do all this codification. I want to say, hey, listen, what type of question is this? They've given you a nice little drop-down menu, true, false, multiple choice, matching. Oh, wow, how cool is that? Really nice, okay? And then how many points is it going to be? Great. And then the question stem, okay? So I would say, who was the first president of the United States? Okay, great. And then, bam. And then I can say, all right, well, here are my different answers, right? Bill Gates? No, probably not. But here's some feedback for people. No, but he was the founder of Microsoft. Cool. Maya Angelou. Okay, another question, another answer. Okay, no, but she was a great poet. Cool. All right, but how do I know it's not the answer? Because I am not putting an asterisk there, so therefore Captivate does not codify that as the correct answer. Now you can see here is George Washington. Great, correct, and blah, 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 blah. John Adams, so close. He was the second president. Okay, so I'm giving some feedback and I'm also having some answers. All right, so now if I'm ready to do another question, okay, I can go ahead and clear this out. It goes away, really nice. And then I can then put in another question. So true, false, right? This is going to be worth 10 points. Okay, I just hit the enter key. Okay, so Captivate is made by Apple. Okay, and then I have to say true or false. Okay, so now I have to say, all right, well, what's it going to be, right? So it's actually false, so I have to go and tell it that it is false. Okay, so that is the correct answer. Now I might want to put in, some feedback or whatever it is, but I'm not sure if they allow for the feedback with this particular one, but we can do that within Captivate itself. All right, now I want you to notice again, kind of the final output. All right, because when I am done with this, right, and I want to tell it that, okay, I have now completed this with all my questions, I have to say add question. It sounds a little bit weird, right? And I think it is a little bit of a weird order, and that's why I want to make kind of special note of this. When you are done, like in other words, when you want to save this, you need to say add question. Okay, so I do that, and you can see, okay, the question you entered has been added to the question CSV worksheet, meaning what? Meaning this guy down here, right? So they're now telling us, right, kind of nice little team, right, to be able to say, okay, you know what? This is going to go right here. Okay, so really nice. So how do I verify that? I click here and you can see, oh, cool. Captivate was made by, let me just go ahead and expand that out. We have to unprotect the worksheet. This is one other little trick. You might need to unprotect it if you want to make changes to this, right? So you might have to go to review and then unprotect it. It might seem like there's a password, but in fact there's not. So all you got to do is that. And now I can just double click on this and I can see it there. Okay, great. Now I have that there. In addition to some of my other questions. And if I don't want this one anymore, just right click on it, say delete. Okay, so you might need to know a little bit of Excel. Okay, but you can see I'm just teaching a couple of things right there. Just simply right click or make some changes to it. So now this is ultimately now going to be my set of questions that I would finally export to a CSV. Okay, so hopefully you all get that, right? So it's like, oh, okay, great. What do? I put in my questions, okay? I add the question. It ends up inside of this whole setup here. And then finally, when I'm done, I export this to be that CSV file that I showed you originally. Okay, remember it was just kind of that lone CSV file. There was nothing else there. So ultimately, you are not importing this file. So let's make that very clear. You are going to be importing a separate CSV file that we're about to create. Okay, so let's just make that clear. This is going to be just the place where you're going to start putting in all of your questions. So it makes it nice and easy, really, really slick. And this is going to be the format that Captivate is ultimately going to read. So I'm going to go ahead and just say export to CSV. Okay, and then notice that it actually has to exist. Okay, so let's go ahead now. I'm going to go back to Excel, and I'm going to say, all right, new. Okay, and what am I going to call this? I'm going to say save as, and let's go ahead and save this as, guess what? A CSV file, very important, right? And then notice also the other kind of format, UTF-8, that's also important. Okay, so I'm just going to call this Captivate CSV quiz questions. All right, and then where am I going to save that? Also keep that in mind. Where are you saving it? Okay, so now check it out. There it is. I'm going to close this. And now when I'm ready to export it, and keep in mind, how many questions do I have? I just have those 3 questions. I can then go ahead and export this. There it is, Captivate CSV quiz questions. Wait for it, and it tells me, okay, it already exists. Do you want to replace it? I'm going to say yes. Okay, you have exported it. Very good. Congratulations. It looks scary, but in fact, it is actually doing exactly what I want it to do. And if I come back to my courseware, let's go ahead and find that. Here it is. Open that up. And bam, there it is, all by itself, totally separate from that other form that we started with. Okay, so that's the first part, right? Now just understand that you could start building off of this one if you want to, right? So I could actually very easily just do this if I want to. Like I know, and this is going to be worth 5. Okay, and then I can just expand this out. This is basically the ones I'm working with. Okay, I could say, what color is a fire engine? Okay, deep questions here. All right, and then I can put all my stuff in here, right? So basically, you've got all of this to be able to go option 1. Okay, so that's going to be red. I know that, right? Because I'm an educated man. Blue, green, yellow. All right, so now this is going to be part of my CSV. So just understand that this is even though not created in that macro, it is still valid. It is still going to be valuable and still going to be exportable. All right, so just keeping that in mind, we've got lots and lots of different options there. All right, now the one thing I also want you to notice, if we go a little bit deeper into this coding, just notice how we have this little kind of I bar here. Let me just go ahead and make this a little bit easier to read. See this little I bar here? That tells us that this is going to be commenting, right? You can see here's a little I bar right there. That's commenting right there. So that's how you tell Captivate to make that into feedback. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just save that, close it out. And now I'm ready to make the magic happen by doing what? Importing this CSV file into this document that I have it all ready to go. And now I'm in Captivate and I'm going to go over here to quiz. And I'm going to go over here to import CSV format file. I do that, and then guess what's waiting for me there? And I got a few other ones too that maybe you want to explore. Sure, why not? So I know I have this one here because I just created it. So I'm just going to go ahead and just double click on it. And just notice it's not showing any other file format because it's CSV. And beautiful. Look at that. Comes right in. No errors, no nothing. I love that. And if we take a look at it, like the same way we looked at our gift file output, that we're going to see that this is in fact a quiz. You will see that this in fact is my fill in the blank. Okay, and you can see there is my answer. Okay, great. And then you can go ahead and change that, or maybe you want to add on another thing, right? Washington. Okay, great. Now I've just added on something else. So it's all still usable for me. Okay, I can do kind of little bits. Maybe my subject matter expert didn't do everything that they should. No problem. I can go ahead and make changes to this. No problem. Okay, and then again, here are my quizzes. And let's just look at that. The one that I said before, what color is a fire engine? Notice how this was 5 points, and that brought that in. Okay, so really, really awesome tool. All right, so maybe at some point you will be the one administering this to people to say, hey, listen, we just have this amazing CSV file that has a little macro built into it, a little form that you can just put in all your questions, and then you have everybody re-import them in here. And then coming back full circle, you may want to establish a series of question pools, right? And you remember how to do that from a couple of lessons ago. And these question pools can originate from your CSV files. These question pools can originate from your text files, but then ultimately ending up in one ginormous question pool that you can access at any time. All right? So really, really valuable. So please go ahead and pause the video, practice this, right? Just break down what's going on inside that CSV file, and then really try to do some real things. Not necessarily what I'm doing here, like what color is a fire engine. Really start to put in some of your questions to make it meaningful for you so you can actually have something at the end of the exercise. Okay, we'll see you in the next lesson. And welcome back, everybody. In this lesson, we are going to learn about drag and drop interactions. And this is going to be the first lesson of a couple that is going to discuss how to create drag and drop, which is really kind of an amazing thing that there's this nice, beautiful way to do it in kind of a wizard rather than having to code it, right? Coming from somebody who used to do this a long time ago when Flash was popular, and it was basically just like encyclopedic, just like a tome of code. And now Captivate does all the heavy lifting. Now, something like drag and drop is actually a really nice tool because it allows for interactivity, right? It allows the user to kind of like wake up and feel engaged with the tool, but also be tested with what you're talking about. Okay, so really, really nice kind of add to your user's experience. All right, so our goal here, just to kind of keep things nice and simple, is to make it so we have a drag and drop functionality that all of our rectangles go inside the rectangle and all of our ovals go inside the circle. So how do we do that? Really, really simple. Okay, it's a lot of steps, but relatively simple steps. So if you follow along here, you'll see it's going to be very easy once you do it on your own. So if we go over to here to our interactions tab up on top, you're going to see that there is one called drag and drop. All right, and if you have never seen any of these before, like the learning interactions, you can check out some of our previous videos that breaks down how to do this with some other more kind of automated ways of doing it, but still pretty slick nonetheless. we are going to do a drag and drop interaction. So as soon as I click on that, this little wizard pops up, right? So we've kind of left Captivate as we know it inside that normal view, but now is where we go and we just say, hey, listen, based on this wizard, I want to do all these different things. So let's just check it out because there's kind of a lot to sort of absorb initially here. So up on top here, they tell you steps 1 of 3. They say here, specify the drag sources by clicking objects on the slide and then click next. And if you want to do more than one, you can do Control plus click for Windows, Command plus click on Mac to select multiple objects. Okay, really nice. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to specify what are the objects that are going to be the dragged objects, right? Where the other ones are going to be like the destination, right? So that's not going to be, in this case, for the destination, it's going to be the drag objects, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just select multiple here. And you can see they're all getting selected. That's great. And it's telling me in green here, the little green boxes, that these in fact are going to be selected. All right, now this next part here, it says group the selected sources into a type to quickly map them to drop targets later. Note that when you map a drag source of a specific type to a drop target, all drag sources of that type become correct answers for the drop target. That's a lot of words there, okay? But I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second, but why are we doing that? We now actually want to create a type for this so we know that all of these guys here, once I choose one to go into here, they're all going to go. All right, so let's just go ahead and follow me. I'm going to click on the plus sign, add a type, and I'm just going to call this rectangles, and all of these will now be part of the rectangles. Okay, that's great. Now, these guys are also going to be our drag sources, right? So we don't click next yet because we have to specify this is a drag source and these are drag sources, but they're a different type. Okay, so I'm going to click on the plus sign again, and I'm going to make these ovals. Okay, great. So all of these are part of that group. Now that's going to be very helpful for us when we finally say, all right, go to next to say, okay, where are going to be the place where they're going to be the targets. All right, so if we zoom in here a little bit, you can see specify the drop targets by clicking on the objects and the slide. Okay, so what does that mean? This guy is going to be a target. Notice how it's now in blue. It's different. This is also going to be a target. Okay, now these guys are still in green, telling me that these are going to be the drag sources and these are going to be the drag targets, or the drop targets, I should say. Okay, now let's go ahead and click next. Now that we've specified that, now here comes the fun part. How does Captivate know where these things are the right answers, right? Where is the right, kind of pairing between all of these different objects? Okay, so super easy. Watch this. I'm just going to go ahead and choose one of them. Just go right from the center and just drag it in. Okay, and as soon as I let go, I want you to notice something magical happens. All 3 of them go there because of that group that I just created. Okay, because like, oh, you're a rectangle. These guys are rectangles too. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the family. They're all going to go in there. So it's a huge, huge time saver. Same thing for my ovals. I'll just go ahead and grab this one, put it in there, and now, bam, look at that. All of them go in. Okay, so really cool. This is a very good practice to establish. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Finish. And now that takes me back to my normal view, right back to my film strip. All right, now you will notice that after I have now completed that wizard, I now have a new tab up here called Drag and Drop. All right, and then some of you may need to kind of maybe go a little bit further in terms of naming things if you want to, but we're going to test it out right now to see how much we even need to actually make some changes to, right? So when I click on this, right, you might see, okay, if it's not the right, you can actually make some changes to it, right? You can see here, add to rectangles. Okay, maybe you missed it. You can actually add to it. This is a drag source. You know this is a drag source. Okay, if I click on this, this is a drop target. Oh, okay, great. So everything is nice. It's established correctly, but you can make changes to it after the fact rather than having to go back into the wizard and everything or starting over again. You can very easily make these changes here. Okay. Now, just like a lot of other quiz options, you will see that there's going to be some failure and success options here. We'll be able to put on some buttons here. Do you want it to be included in the quiz for points and things like that? All right, so we're going to come back to this in just a second, but now the moment you've all been waiting for, let's see the drag and drop in action. So I'm going to go ahead and just preview this. I'm going to say from this slide, and it's going to open up to my player. And now you're going to see, I have the ability to very easily drag this. So you'll notice that when I move my mouse over these, right, I get a little hand, right? Don't get a hand for this because this is not a drop object, right, or drag object, right? This is. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this in, drag that in, okay, and then drag it. That doesn't look right, but let's just see what happens. Go ahead and do that, and just notice how cool that is, right? How it just goes right into the center. It's beautiful, really slick. But now watch what happens now. I'm going to go ahead and click on Submit, and I have some failure text feedback, right? So it's like, oh, okay. Well, number one, probably want to update that, right, to make it so it's going to give a person some actual relevant feedback. Maybe I want to place it someplace different. Maybe I want to change the look and feel of it. I can very, very easily do that. So that was obviously not the right answer, but we're going to go ahead and create both right answer and wrong answer, success and failure captions. So on the actual file itself, on the slide here, I'm going to go ahead and just see I have these two guys right here. All right, so you can see there's my failure text, right? Please try again. Great job. Okay, and then you can certainly do whatever you want to do with this, right? If you want to put in a different kind of fill, just notice how you have kind of different kind of levels of opacity, whatever you want to do there, just make it bright green. Okay, that's great. You'd have all the control in the world then to put this wherever you want, and then also put in whatever kind of copy you want. All right. Now, coming back to what I said earlier, as far as working with the different buttons, you may want to give people different options to be able to reset it and also undo it. Okay, because if they accidentally put it into the wrong place, it's like, well, what happens, right? If they drag into the wrong section, into the wrong target, we want to give them the ability to then make the changes, right? Or back up for a second very easily. And that's where we go to the drag and drop tab up here, and we come way down here to our buttons and we say, oh, you know what? It really might be nice to get an undo and also to do a reset. Well, that's kind of cool. Yeah, should definitely have that. All right. And then how about including quiz? Yeah. And then guess what? Comes down here and say, well, how many points is this worth? Well, this seems pretty complicated. Maybe I'll make that 20 points. You can do that. And then also if you're reporting this, right, this will actually put it into your LMS for your SCORM reporting. You can do that as well. All right. Now you also might want to have some other things here, right? So how many attempts do you want, right? Do you even want to have a caption after they hit submit, right? It's totally, totally up to you how you want to do that. All right. And then again, you have some other options here. So auto submit correct answers. So after they've done it, bam, just go for it, right? Just make it easy for them, or there's no guess. It's like, hey, congratulations, you did it. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all three of these, holding down the shift key, and just keep that nice aligned, and that's going to be down there. All right. Now, this is looking pretty good, and I'm now going to preview once more, and I'm going to start using some of these other ones, and then finally, when I'm done, let's just see if I can be successful with it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to preview from this slide. And now, check it out. Click in here, click in there. Oh, that was a mistake. Undo. Oh, very nice. Okay, come over there. Oh, man, I did it again. Undo. Cool. All right. Very nice. Okay, cool. Now I'm getting the trick here. I go to here. It's like, okay, you know what? This is a big, big mess. Wait, but that was 2 steps ago. Oh, guess what? I can reset. And that goes all the way back to the beginning. All right. Okay, now I really, really get it. Okay, cool. I do that. Fits nicely, beautifully. Okay, love it. Okay, submit. Cool. Great job. I feel good about myself. All right, so really cool, really slick, and you'll think of creative ways of doing this, just basically understanding what are going to be your drag objects and your drop targets. Okay, so play around with this, right? You see just some basic ways of doing it, but I did an exercise not too long ago with recycling, composting, and garbage, right? So that's one example. It's like you've got the 3 different receptacles there. What goes where? Okay, and it could be just like, hey, what compatibility software is good for responsive design versus non-responsive design. Okay, great. So just like, hey, just show it to me in more interactive ways. Okay, so maybe you have something that's a map. Maybe you have something that's a little more visual. Maybe you have parts of the body, anatomy, that type of thing. It's just a different way of testing people out. That's going to be, again, a little bit more engaging, okay, a little bit more interactive. All right, so pause the video, practice this. This is here for you. Have fun with it and just see how easy it is. And welcome back, everybody. In this lesson, we are going to learn about drag and drop interactions. And this is going to be the first lesson of a couple that is going to discuss how to create drag and drop, which is really kind of an amazing thing that there's this nice, beautiful way to do it and kind of a wizard rather than having to code it, right? Coming from somebody who used to do this a long time ago when Flash was popular, and it was basically just like encyclopedic, just like a tome of code. And now Captivate does all the heavy lifting. Now, something like drag and drop is actually a really nice tool because it allows for interactivity, right? It allows the user to kind of like wake up and feel engaged with the tool, but also be tested with what you're talking about. Okay, so really, really nice kind of add to your user's experience. All right, so our goal here, just to kind of keep things nice and simple, is to make it so we have a drag and drop functionality that all of our rectangles go inside the rectangle and all of our ovals go inside the circle. So how do we do that? Really, really simple. Okay, it's a lot of steps, but relatively simple steps. So if you follow along here, you'll see it's going to be very easy once you do it on your own. So if we go over to here to our interactions tab up on top, you're going to see that there is one called drag and drop. All right, and if you have never seen any of these before, like the learning interactions, you can check out some of our previous videos that breaks down how to do this with some other more kind of automated ways of doing it, but still pretty slick nonetheless. We are going to do a drag and drop interaction. So as soon as I click on that, this little wizard pops up, right? So we've kind of left Captivate as we know it inside that normal view, but now is where we go and we just say, hey, listen, based on this wizard, I want to do all these different things. So let's just check it out because there's kind of a lot to sort of absorb initially here. So up on top here, they tell you steps 1 of 3. They say here, specify the drag sources by clicking objects on the slide and then click next. And if you want to do more than one, you can do Control plus click for Windows, Command plus click on Mac to select multiple objects. Okay, really nice. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to specify what are the objects that are going to be the dragged objects, right? Where the other ones are going to be like the destination, right? So that's not going to be, in this case, for the destination, it's going to be the drag objects, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just select multiple here. And you can see they're all getting selected. That's great. And it's telling me in green here, the little green boxes, that these in fact are going to be selected. All right, now this next part here, it says group the selected sources into a type to quickly map them to drop targets later. Note that when you map a drag source of a specific type to a drop target, all drag sources of that type become correct answers for the drop target. That's a lot of words there, okay? But I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second, but why are we doing that? We now actually want to create a type for this so we know that all of these guys here, once I choose one to go into here, they're all going to go. All right, so let's just go ahead and follow me. I'm going to click on the plus sign, add a type, and I'm just going to call this rectangles, and all of these will now be part of the rectangles. Okay, that's great. Now, these guys are also going to be our drag sources, right? So we don't click next yet because we have to specify this is a drag source and these are drag sources, but they're a different type. Okay, so I'm going to click on the plus sign again and I'm going to make these ovals. Okay, great. So all of these are part of that group. Now that's going to be very helpful for us when we finally say, all right, go to next to say, okay, where are going to be the place where they're going to be the targets. All right, so if we zoom in here a little bit, you can see specify the drop targets by clicking on the objects and the slide. Okay, so what does that mean? This guy is going to be a target. Notice how it's now in blue. It's different. This is also going to be a target. Okay, now these guys are still in green, telling me that these are going to be the drag sources and these are going to be the drag targets, or the drop targets, I should say. Okay, now let's go ahead and click next. Now that we've specified that, now here comes the fun part. How does Captivate know where these things are the right answers, right? Where's the right, kind of pairing between all of these different objects? Okay, so super easy. Watch this. I'm just going to go ahead and choose one of them. Just go right from the center and just drag it in. Okay, and as soon as I let go, I want you to notice something magical happens. All three of them go there because of that group that I just created. Okay, because like, oh, you're a rectangle. These guys are rectangles too. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the family. They're all going to go in there. So it's a huge, huge time saver. Same thing for my ovals. I'll just go ahead and grab this one, put it in there. And now, bam, look at that. All of them go in. Okay, so really cool. This is a very good practice to establish. So I'm going to go ahead and click on finish. And now that takes me back to my normal view, right back to my film strip. All right, now you will notice that after I have now completed that wizard, I now have a new tab up here called drag and drop. All right, and then some of you may need to kind of maybe go a little bit further in terms of naming things if you want to, but we're going to test it out right now to see how much we even need to actually make some changes to, right? So when I click on this, right, you might see, okay, if it's not the right, you can actually make some changes to it, right? You can see here, add to rectangles. Okay, maybe you missed it. You can actually add to it. This is a drag source. You know this is a drag source. Okay, if I click on this, this is a drop target. Okay, great. So everything is nice. It's established correctly, but you can make changes to it after the fact rather than having to go back into the wizard and everything or starting over again. You can very easily make these changes here. Okay. Now, just like a lot of other quiz options, you will see that there's going to be some failure and success options here. We'll be able to put on some buttons here. Do you want it to be included in the quiz for points and things like that? All right, so we're going to come back to this in just a second, but now the moment you've all been waiting for, let's see the drag and drop in action. So I'm going to go ahead and just preview this. I'm going to say from this slide, and it's going to open up to my player. And now you're going to see I have the ability to very easily drag this. So you'll notice that when I move my mouse over these, right, I get a little hand, right? Don't get a hand for this because this is not a drop object, right, or drag object, right? This is. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this in, drag that in, okay, and then drag it. That doesn't look right, but let's just see what happens. Go ahead and do that, and just notice how cool that is, right? How it just goes right into the center. It's beautiful, really slick. But now watch what happens now. I'm going to go ahead and click on submit, and I have some failure text feedback, right? So it's like, oh, okay. Well, number one, probably want to update that, right? To make it so it's going to, give a person some actual relevant feedback. Maybe I want to place it someplace different. Maybe I want to change the look and feel of it. I can very, very easily do that. So that was obviously not the right answer, but we're going to go ahead and create both right answer and wrong answer, success and failure captions. So on the actual file itself, on the slide here, I'm going to go ahead and just see I have these two guys right here. All right, so you can see there's my failure text, right? Please try again. Great job. Okay, and then you can certainly do whatever you want to do with this, right? If you want to put in a different kind of fill, just notice how you have kind of different kind of levels of opacity, whatever you want to do there, just make it bright green. Okay, that's great. You'd have all the control in the world then to put this wherever you want, and then also put in whatever kind of copy you want. All right. Now, coming back to what I said earlier, as far as working with the different buttons, you may want to give people different options to be able to reset it and also undo it. Okay, because if they accidentally put it into the wrong place, it's like, well, what happens, right? If they drag into the wrong section, into the wrong target, we want to give them the ability to then make the changes, right? Or back up for a second very easily. And that's where we go to the drag and drop tab up here, and we come way down here to our buttons and we say, oh, you know what? It really might be nice to get an undo and also to do a reset. Well, that's kind of cool. Yeah, should definitely have that. All right. And then how about including quiz? Yeah. And then guess what? Comes down here and say, well, how many points is this worth? Well, this seems pretty complicated. Maybe I'll make that 20 points. You can do that. And then also if you're reporting this, right, this will actually put it into your LMS for your SCORM reporting. You can do that as well. All right. Now you also might want to have some other things here, right? So how many attempts do you want, right? Do you even want to have a caption after they hit submit, right? It's totally up to you how you want to do that. All right. And then again, you have some other options here. So auto submit correct answers. So after they've done it, bam, just go for it, right? Just make it easy for them, right? There's no guess. It's like, hey, congratulations, you did it. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all three of these, holding down the shift key, and just keep that nice aligned, and that's going to be down there. All right. Now, this is looking pretty good, and I'm now going to preview once more, and I'm going to start using some of these other ones, and then finally, when I'm done, let's just see if I can be successful with it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to preview from this slide. And now, check it out. Click in here, click in there. Oh, you know, that was a mistake. Undo. Oh, very nice. Okay, come over there. Oh, man, I did it again. Undo. Cool. All right. Very nice. Okay, cool. Now I'm getting the trick here. I go to here. It's like, okay, you know what? This is a big mess. Oh, wait. But that was 2 steps ago. Oh, guess what? I can reset. And that goes all the way back to the beginning. All right. Okay, now I really get it. Okay, cool. I do that. Fits nicely, beautifully. Okay, love it. Okay, submit. Cool. Great job. I feel good about myself. All right, so really cool, really slick, you know, and you'll think of creative ways of doing this, you know, just basically understanding what are going to be your drag objects and your drop targets. Okay, so play around with this, right? You see just some basic ways of doing it, but I did an exercise not too long ago with, you know, recycling, composting, and garbage, right? So that's one example. It's like you've got the 3 different receptacles there. What goes where? Okay, and it could be just like, hey, you know what, you know, compatibility software is good for responsive design versus non-responsive design. Okay, great. So just like, hey, just show it to me in more interactive ways. Okay, so maybe you have something that's a map. Maybe you have something that's a little more visual. You know, maybe you have parts of the body, anatomy, you know, that type of thing. It's just a different way of testing people out. That's going to be, again, a little bit more engaging, okay, a little bit more interactive. All right, so pause the video, practice this. This is here for you. Have fun with it and just see how easy it is. So in this lesson now, as I said, we're going to now start creating our drag and drop. Now, one thing I want you to notice here is that in addition to all of our elements that we're going to drag, notice how good old James here is sitting here and he's got these little kind of invisible boxes on top of him. These are going to be these kind of like sort of like invisible placeholders that we've set up here to be the drop zone. Okay, and notice how we have 0% opacity. So that's kind of a nice little hack to make it so you can do something like that to kind of dress him up. So it's going to be a little container where these clothes are ultimately going to live, and they're just going to kind of stack right inside of that. All right, just notice how there's 3 of them, one for his shirt, one for his pants, and one for his shoes. Okay, now the process that we're going to do is very similar to what we did with our shapes. So we're going to go over here to interactions. We're going to say drag and drop, and it's going to take us to our nice little wizard. And all we're doing here is just saying, hey, what are going to be our drag sources, right? What are going to be the things that we're going to be clicking? All right, so this is clickable. That is clickable, right? That is going to be what we are going to drag. I'm not holding down Control or Shift or anything. Bam, and there you have it. Okay, so I'm going to go next, and then you're going to see I'm now in the next part here to say, okay, specify the drop targets. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on that shape. Click on that shape, And there you go. So we got a bunch of blue shapes here and we got a bunch of green shapes. Wonderful. Go ahead and click next. Now I have to specify what? I have to specify, well, when somebody does drag it, where should it go? Where's the rightful place for these things to go? So very simple. I just go ahead and just drag that in there. Drag that in there. Drag that in there. Drag that in there. And then find these guys. Just be very careful to go right on the little square, because otherwise I'll just take all the objects. Okay, excellent. Now everybody's kind of set to be in the rightful place, right? So nothing new under the sun there. So I click on that and bam, I'm ready to go. Okay, so I've already established this. Okay, now let's go ahead and go check out some of our drag and drop options here. We can see that's there. That's great. Let's go over here to our properties. That's great. And you'll notice here is a submit button. Okay, kind of buried in there. So number one, I'm going to go ahead and just select it and then move that over here. And if you recall from the complete drag and drop interaction, that submit button was not there. Okay, but it's going to essentially do what we want it to do as far as saying, hey, the person is done with what they're dragging and dropping. We want to know, hey, did we get this right? So we're going to make it a little more playful. Just going to go ahead and select it and change this to say, how do I look? Okay, and then maybe you can make that a little bit wider. You can make it a little taller. And of course you can change this to whatever color you want, anything like that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our success option and also our failure caption. So let's go ahead and bring that over here and bring this over here. And we're going to just kind of relegate this for now for the success, but come over to here. And we're now going to just make this a little taller. So when somebody gets it wrong, we're going to have that little note that's going to say, that's not quite right. Try another outfit. Okay, lovely. That's great. And for this one, we're going to do something kind of fun. Well, we're going to convert this into a different shape altogether, where it's going to be a little thought bubble. So very simply, all I need to do is right click on it, say replace smart shape, and I'm going to find another one. Just make him kind of thinking the thing I want. Little thought bubble. And let's grab that little yellow guy right there. Maybe make that a little taller. Say, I am a sharp dressed man. Pull it over a little bit. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so we kind of have a little bit of, extra sort of nuance now here, where we're going to have our success, which is going to be a little thought bubble, him speaking. And we have a failure, if you will, right? That's like, okay, it's going to be a slightly different thing here. Okay, so let's also add on a reset button, but also one that's going to give us a little bit of information that's going to say, hey, you know what? Let's try on a new outfit, because we're telling them to do that. Okay, but this comes up here. We're going to actually replace the one with an actual real one that's going to say, hey, let's actually do the reset of the entire thing. Okay, so let's just go ahead and set that up. We're going to go over here to drag and drop. It's kind of buried in here inside of actions. And then we're going to come over here to reset. And then that pops up here. And I'm going to now come over to my button settings here. So under properties, I'm going to scroll up to the top here. I'm going to say new outfit. All right, and I don't need this one anymore. Now that is going to set the whole thing up, right? That is going to reset it to say, hey, listen, we're going to make a new outfit out of this. And more technically speaking, it's going to reset the whole slide. Okay, now I'm going to suggest that you pause the video at this point just to get things set up, because we have kind of multi-stages here. but get yours to kind of look like mine. Maybe you want to just maybe add on some color, just kind of make it a little bit more kind of easy to interface with for your user, you know, just whatever kind of thing you might want to kind of have a little more pizzazz to it. But go ahead, pause the video. I'm going to actually do another lesson following this, but I want to make sure that we have all this set up because it can get a little complicated once we start building off of these things. So let's make sure we have this established, and then we'll continue on with the next lesson. All right, and welcome back. Hopefully you got a chance to practice that, to seal that in. Make sure you feel pretty comfortable with some of those fundamentals of drag and drop. This next part is going to be a slight kind of evolution from where we have seen already with drag and drop. So we're going to go ahead and click on this little drop destination, the target, so we can actually set some of the parameters and some of what we call our object actions around this. Okay, so when I click on the drag and drop panel, you're going to notice here is this object action. So you're going to actually have a series of different actions potentially you want to sort of have nuance around. You want to have some control, some variation on it. So one example is when somebody moves a shirt on top of here, right? It's going to stay, we know that. But then when they move another one on top of it, we want it to move away. Okay, so it's basically going to replace it. All right, so when I click on this here, you're going to see here is object action. And you're going to see here, it's going to show me all of my objects. All right, and you can see here also the value of naming all your labels. That's really helpful. So now we can actually see everything here. So notice here it says accepted drag sources. I'm just going to go ahead and just say, all right, none of those. But what I am going to have here is what? My beer tee and my collared shirt. And I'm not going to accept all because that means if I do accept all, they're going to be able to just be kind of stacked on top of each other. That's kind of how we saw with our shapes earlier. And that's okay. Or the example of like, you know, doing, you know, trash versus recycling. You know, you might have bottles and cans and paper stacked on top of each other. That's fine. But in this case, there's essentially only going to be kind of one. So we do not want to say accept all. We want to say unaccept, replace. Okay, you see that? So this might be a little bit kind of new for you. So again, practice this as much as possible. We're going to come back to this in a little bit for the actions, and that has to do with our different states. Okay, so we're going to come back to that in a subsequent lesson here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right, and then nothing really fancy happens, but when I do my thing, you're going to see it there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for this one, object action. Okay, in this case, it's going to be what? My slacks and my shorts. And I'm going to uncheck that. I'm going to say replace and do the same thing for these guys here, object action. And these guys are the Oxfords and the sandals. And then uncheck this and just say replace. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and preview what we've done so far, okay, our kind of initial moment of truth. So let's go ahead and go to preview. I'm going to say from this slide, and let's get our boy all dressed up. So I do that, and then again, these are all clickable, everything like that. Notice a little hand comes up, and you can see, bam, I can do that, and I can do that, right, and I can do that, right, with all these things here, right? But what did we just do with the object action? So, oh, you know what? Let's actually give him a beer too. It's Friday. Over to here, and you can see it switches it out. Let's come over to here, and it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. You got to kind of be right in there. Okay, there we go. All right, and this could also be slightly, there we go. Okay, good. All right, so, and with that kind of nuance, just by the way, just understand that you do have the ability, if I go back to here, to basically say the hit area padding. So it gives you a little bit more room, right, for people to just say, hey, listen, you know what? They're too close to each other, those things right there. So you can kind of make it so you can have a little more space and a little bit more kind of flexibility, and a little more forgiveness for the user when they're clicking and dragging, right? So you can just go ahead and increase that if you like. Okay, so again, I'm gonna have you just pause the video, practice that. So I just wanna make sure that we get all of these little nuances down. Okay, so pause the video. When we come back, we're gonna start talking about all of our different state changes based on the different actions. So just a little bit of review. Let's go back to our drag and drop advanced complete so we can understand what's happening with our state changes. Some of you may have seen state changes with buttons when somebody rolls over something, when they click on a button, right? You want it to change the color of it or kind of put a border around it, or could be lots of more creative things like working with layering and things like that. But if I go ahead now, and I'm going to go ahead and preview this, and we're going to see the state changes of good old James when I give him the nice shirt, okay? Or if I give him the not so nice pants, that's not ready for work. You can see that is the state change. Now, when I click on his face there, I want you to notice here within properties is the state view. I click on that, and you're going to see here there are 4 different states, okay? And each of these states, okay, was created by me, okay? These are states called happy, sad, and confused, okay? So you can see how it changes just like that. And each of these things are their own individual image files, okay? So if we go back over here to our library, we'll see, bam, there that is, okay? That's great, all right? So now if you ever wanted to create a new state or do anything like that, you can go ahead and just click on new state, and then it's going to allow you to name the state and then put whatever kind of object you want to put in there, okay? When you are working with buttons, by the way, they usually typically have their own states built into it, okay? So let's go ahead now and start working on this, all right? So we're going to go ahead and open up to our one that we're working on here, and we're going to go back to our properties. And I want you to notice here, when I go back to my properties, there's nothing to do with the drag and drop. I'm going to now go over to here to my state view. Now, when I click on that, you will see, because I'm working on one that is not complete, there is only one state. And again, think about why I'm doing this. I'm setting myself up so when something else happens, I can refer back to one of these additional states, saying, hey, you know what? James has a lot of emotions, okay? At sometimes when you click on something, we want to have one emotion show. When you click on something else, have another emotion show. This is incredibly valuable for so many things, not just drag and drop, but basically you're saying, if this happens, then change the state of it, right? If somebody gets the answer wrong or somebody clicks on something, whatever, make them happy, or whatever it might be, just know that this is going to help you kind of make your module a lot more dynamic and have a little more kind of human emotion and element to it. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to say new state, and then I'm just going to say happy, right? That is a happy James. Okay, and now guess what? I now have a new potential state. It's like, wait a second, where's James? I thought that he was happy. Guess what I got to do? I got to select him, right? So there he is. Okay, and then I got to go back to my properties panel, got to go to style, and then there it is. You see it's James regular head, right? I don't want that, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and guess what? That takes me into my library of all the things that I've already imported. If you didn't import it, you can import it anyway. I'm going to go ahead and say happy. There he is. Okay, that's great. And you'll notice he comes in there, but it's not perfect. Okay, so therefore I need to actually either nudge it if I know, exactly if I can eyeball it or whatever it is, or I can come over to here and I can put in where I want him to be. And in this case, he's going to be 144. All right, and then 148. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, and then, okay, super good, super happy there. I have one additional state. Let's go ahead and do another one. Let's just go ahead and say sad. And again, same deal. Go over here to my properties, go over to here to style, and let's go ahead and make a change to that. And let's find it. All right. Same deal. Let's go to options. 144. Okay, good. All right. So there we go. And let's do one more just for practice. And also just to show the complexity of James. Okay, so we're going to say confused. All right. And again, do the same thing. Go to style. And let's find the many faces of James. Okay, wonderful. So now we have these states available to now refer to James. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of the state view just by simply clicking on exit state. And now we get to put it in action. So let's just see this and how it relates to our drag and drop. So we're going to leave the properties panel. We're going to go way over here to drag and drop. And you're going to see how I have these 3 tabs here. Not a whole lot going on in format. What about actions? Okay, so earlier we talked about if this, then that. If somebody is successful, then let's show that they're successful. If they're not successful, let's show they're not successful, right, in a different way. Okay, so let's go ahead now, and we have James' head right there. We can see, okay, for the action on success, look at all the different types of things that we can do here. You've probably seen this before with lots of buttons, and you probably used maybe about 20-30% of them, but here's one that maybe you haven't used, which is change the state of, and you can see here is on success, I want to change the state of James to be happy. And look at that. All of my states now appear because here it is, change state of James, or it's where it started, to happy. Okay, and on failure, let's go ahead and just scroll down there. We'll just say change state of James, and let's just make him sad for right now. Okay, and now let's go ahead and now add on another object state that's going to be a little bit more kind of nuance. Okay, so if we go back to where we had the actual placeholder for it, and we come over to here, again, once again, to our format for our object actions. Remember earlier I referred back to this, that we had an action potential for when somebody actually does something more specific, right? Not whether they're right or wrong as an entirety, you know, for submitting everything, but actually on the action itself. Okay, so I'm going to click on that, and you're going to notice here is no action at this point. What I do want to say is change the state of for this, right? And you're going to see here, okay, what do we want to have happen, right? For the beer tea, right? If it's the beer tea, let's actually make him confused. Okay, and I'm going to uncheck this here. That's going to be kind of important because that way you want it to continue playing, right? Because this is sort of like in the middle of doing everything, right? It's not necessarily going to be a submit type of thing, like it's at the end with a right or wrong. This is just sort of like in flux of what the process is. I'm going to keep that unchecked. All right, and then for this one, same thing. I'm going to say change the state of, and because it's the collared shirt, he is going to be happy. For that one, uncheck that. All right, click OK, and I'll do the same thing for this one here, object action. And you can see here for my slacks, he is going to go ahead and change the state of, and he is happy with that. Uncheck this. Shorts, he is going to be confused again. Okay, change the state of, make him confused. All right, so you get the deal, right? We'll just do one more time, and hopefully you're able to practice this on your own. Okay, so the Oxfords, depending on where you work, maybe this will make you happy or not happy. Okay, so let's go ahead and make him happy here. And finally, sandals, change the state of, and he will be confused. Okay, all right, very good. So now let's go ahead and do a preview for this. All right, let's just see what that's going to look like. Okay, and here we are. And let's just see what happens now. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him here. And he's happy. Look at that. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and ooh, he's confused. Okay, let's do the same thing here. Okay, happy? Sure. All right, he's still happy. And confused, right? Do you see what's going on here? All right, so we're able to do that, right? And then finally, how do I look? Is you pulling the trigger on it ultimately to say, okay, we are done here, right? And then bam, did we get it done here, right? So you can see, right? Oh, that's not quite right. Click a new outfit again. All right, so you can see how this process works. So that is pretty much our advanced drag and drop. Now, just to review, we covered quite a bit here. Okay, so much of it, just starting off from the beginning, is being organized with your layers, right? Just making sure that you have everything all laid out, you know, you're naming your layers, right? You may have some little drop zones here, and remember how we started that off with these little clear placeholders. Right, super important, right, super valuable. And it's a little nuanced, right? So just keeping that in mind, right? And then we went into some deeper things, right? In addition to what we did for our individual, just regular drag and drop, we changed the state of his face based off of whether they got the answer right or wrong, right? And we also went a little bit deeper into the individual. Let me go ahead and click on the little target here. And we went to our, go to properties. So you may go to drag and drop and then go over here to object actions. And we went a little bit deeper into that. We also did some things with our hit area padding as well to kind of give a little more space. All right. Now, you may be playing around with some of these things here as well, right? In terms of the anchoring, if you wanted to kind of be one part, right? Because it's taking up too much space and they're not necessarily, they're overlapping each other, so you can control where all these things are going to be if you want to. You can even make it so the size is a little bit different, right? So you can just play around with all these things here. Okay, now you may use this for something completely different, but just understand that the process is very similar. Okay, and it's a really cool, interactive, fun way to test people, right? But you're engaging them, right? You're making it a little bit more captivating, okay? You're making it a little bit more of, an engrossed experience for people because they are the ones actually clicking and dragging things, you're getting feedback, and you're giving them kind of a tangible experience. All right, so you've got a few phases to practice. Go ahead and do that. Try it out. Take your time. Come back and review this as necessary. Okay, and we'll see you in the next lesson. One of the nice things about working with Captivate is the plethora, the abundance of assets that they give you, especially in the most recent versions. Now, one of the assets they give you is a whole bunch of drag and drop interactions that you pretty much can just plug and play. So essentially, they're going to give you these drag and drop interactions, and then you can just go ahead and put in your own content. Now, we're looking at a few of them right here, 1, 2, and 3, that I've taken from all the asset libraries that have been so graciously gifted to us. Now, the thing you'll want to do is, first of all, check out some of the layer names to be able to identify what generic names they have here and then make it so the names are relevant for what we're going to be putting in there, right? So you might be changing your image to something else, right? And then you're going to go ahead and put it someplace else just the same, right? Taking a look at something like this, right? Very generic names like Smart Shape, and things like that. We want to make sure that we're, calling them, what they are. Here's DD Target 26, et cetera. All right. So what we're going to do in this lesson is show you how we can get some, right? And then also how we can identify what we already know based off of drag and drop of how we can actually manipulate it. Okay. But a lot of these things you'll already know. So let's just go ahead and just take a look at this particular one in action. Then we're going to back into it and say, okay, well, how can we find it? And then how can we actually make it our own? So let's just preview this. I'm going to say from this slide. And we have a drag and drop interaction that says, okay, what objects belong on what part of this image? Okay, so you can see here we got these little orange circles here, and let's just go ahead. I'm just going to drag this right there, and it fits right into that circle. That goes right there. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll go ahead and do that, and then notice as soon as I finish, my state changes. Okay. And I barely had to do anything at all for this. Okay. So we worked very hard in those last set of exercises to create something like this, okay, from scratch. But it's also good to know that Captivate offers these things, right? So we're going to go ahead and just deconstruct that. So let's just go ahead now. We can go to the next one and you'll see here this, right? Does that go there? No, it doesn't go there. It goes there, right? Oh, no, it goes here. Okay. So we're going to see what are the right answers here. Okay, what's actually making it do the thing that it's doing? Okay, and you can see here's another thing here. Bam, another kind of creative way to do your things there. Okay, fantastic. All right, so if I hit submit, right, incorrect. Okay, so we'll have to take a look at that. All right, so, but really cool, but very different ways of doing things. Now, we're going to be able to see all of the different options that are available for us from the asset library, and you can pick and choose what's going to be good for you. So I just have my untitled document open right now, and very simply, I want to look for different types of drag and drop interactions. So what do? I'm going to go over to here, to my little assets icon. And when I come over to here, you're going to see that there's a ton of different assets that we can explore. Maybe you've seen these before, maybe you watched some of it in previous lessons, but I just want you to see here, it's broken down from projects in its entirety, which are really cool. Okay, and then we also have our slides. Okay, and then you can see here, well, what kind of slides you're looking for, intro, objects. You know, you can just fish around, take a look at it. These are just really good to know about. I think I did a lesson on this earlier on, so you can watch that. Not exhaustive, but just enough to kind of get you going. So I'm going to go ahead and click over here to interactions, and I want you to see how there's a bunch here, drag and drop sorting, drag and drop matching, a few other things here, words and phrases. Wow, so many really cool things, more drag and drop. But you can see how it's kind of polluted with some other things. So I know I only want drag and drop, so I can do a little search and just say drag, and that's pretty much all I'm going to get. So you can see some of the ones that we've already explored. This one, actually, no, we didn't do this one. We did this one. We did this one, right? And a few other ones here you can see might look familiar to you. Here's a drag and drop match, okay? Interactive timeline. So really cool. So let's just find one that we may potentially like. So let's just maybe go to this one, say insert slide. And this might take about 10, 15 seconds to get in there, depending on the size of it. All right, and now I am now looking at this particular slide, and we have to match this. Now, as soon as I do that, you're going to notice that I have this drag and drop tab over here, just like I did when I created something from scratch. But guess what? It's already here automatically. Okay, and of course I have all my properties and everything like that here. And you'll see that when I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these, right, you can see how I have my draggable items, and this is going to go into here into my drop targets. Okay, so what we can do now is we can take a look under the hood at some of the actions and take a look. There is the on success. And earlier, it's just going to do continue, but earlier we saw how we can change the state. Okay, so that's what we're going to take a look at, how this was done to make him smile at the end. Okay, but what I'm trying to show you here is all the cool stuff that you can do right off the shelf, but now that you know kind of how it's all done, right, by doing it from scratch and on your own, you'll be able to use some of these off-the-shelf things here. Okay, so if we go over here to options, take a look, you can see here's this set correct answers, and then you'll be able to see, oh, okay, you know what, is this even right? The way that they're doing it, you can actually make these changed here, right? So let me go ahead and back out of this for a second. I'm going to come over to here, okay, and I want you to notice here's this one called drag boot, okay, and then it's kind of hiding down below. I may have to move this guy out of the way. All right, you can see. All right, it is, there it is, drop 2. Not a big fan of that name, so I'm just going to call this drop boot. Okay, great, love that. And then now I'm going to know what that does. All right, so now when I come back to drag and drop, and I go over here to actions, and then you're going to see here, excuse me, under options, I'm going to go over here to set correct. Okay, and you'll see how they're actually talking to each other now. So number one, we're seeing the importance of layer naming. So very good. Say, okay, because these guys are confusing to me. It doesn't really tell me too much at all. But now I'm able to see, okay, so the drag source is drag boot, and then it's going to drop boot. Okay, very good. So we know that that's right. If it is not right, because sometimes it's not going to work out for you because these are off the shelf, it's very easy to change them. So when you double click on them, you're going to see a little drop down now appears to be able to, oh, cool. Now I can just go ahead and switch it out. It's all the objects that now live on there. Okay, great. And the reason why there's only one for here is because they're all kind of spoken for. You can't have more than one thing being dragged to, right? So you can see that there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. All right, now, earlier, we discussed the change the state of, right? So you can see here as my action, you can see here is on success, change the state of, da-da-da. Okay, well, what are we talking about with states? So we go back to him again, we go over here to state view, and guess what? There he is, right? Happy guy. And there he is, incorrect, not so happy, right? You don't want to upset a guy with a big shovel in his hand. So now you can see, wow, how cool is that? Very simple, right? Very easy to access. And then you can take ownership of all the things that are available to you very simply, again, by going to set the correct answers and then making your changes. And again, not very pretty, not very elegant, not very easy to use. So you'd come back over to here and you make your changes accordingly. All right. So a lot to unpack here. All right. So just understanding that A, we can get them from our assets panel. B, when we go into our assets panel, there is a lot to explore, a lot of gifts from Captivate, not just working with our drag and drop, but a ton more options that I highly, highly recommend that you explore, because just off the shelf, there's not really a whole lot. And then if you don't have a lot of time to be a designer, you can see there's a lot of stuff available in there. Okay. And then the other part is what we already know. Based off of what the drag and drop interactions already come with, we can then go ahead and make the changes and then customize it, or keep it as is, or go ahead and just add on some other parameters that are maybe missing, right? Like some of the things that we added on earlier, like some of our buttons and things like that, including it in the quiz, doing all kinds of stuff here. So all the time you spent in that last lesson will really, really help you and provide a lot of value for you moving forward with some of these other ones that are right off the shelf. So ultimately saving you some time. In this lesson, we're going to talk about different types of interactions once again. But this time we're going to kind of take a little more of a softball approach to it. You kind of worked pretty hard in this last set of interactions, where we're going to talk about some of the, again, freebies that Captivate offers for us. However, I want to sort of use this opportunity to talk about what our next set of lessons is going to be, which is around variables and different types of scripts that we're going to be able to create. Now, I'm going to show you these ones that are already complete so you can kind of get an idea of what's in store. It's going to look a little bit advanced, but the nice thing is you already know about how to interface with these because you know about states, you know about how to work with the properties panel a little bit, okay? And you're going to be able to see how it's easy it is to go through the assets panel to create something like this, right? So let me just show you as an example. I'm going to go here to preview this slide, and we're going to see what's available for us. All right, now when we open it up, we'll be able to see we're going to have these tabs on the side. And then as I click on them, you can see content 1. All right, very nice. Okay, and it just shows up just like that, right? Different content there for each individual tab. Really nice. Let's go over to here to our next one. You can see hotspot 1, hotspot 2. Okay, great. And it's going to show you when you click on, it's going to give you some information. This is the little bar there. That's this little thing there. Right? So, okay, cool. Nice and interactive to be able to see different types of things you can do here and whatever, maybe for some quizzing. Now, how did we get this and how is this all manipulated? Because obviously you do not want to have that as saying content 1, content 2, etc. You want to be able to make it your own. Okay, so let's go ahead and first find out where we can find these. Just like how we did with our drag and drop, we're going to go over here to our assets. And I'm going to go over to here to my interactions. All right. And you're going to see here, there's going to be a lot of interactions to explore. Okay. We've already seen our drag and drop, and you'll be able to see there's some other things like click to reveal. Okay. Some other ones, maybe it's going to be a tabbed interaction, a timeline interaction. Okay. Conversation scroll, like all these different things here. Some are going to be a little more advanced, right? But once you learn how to use a couple of them, you'll be able to sort of, transfer that knowledge over to other types of interactions as well. All right, so very simply, all we do is we click on it and then we insert it. Okay, so I'm just going to use the one that we just took a look at as an example. All right, now the tricky part here when we're looking at this is that a lot of us at this stage may just be relying on the timeline. All right, and you'll notice that the timeline, let me just scroll down a little bit. When I click on this, the timeline shows me these tabs. Okay, you can see all those things there. There's my tabs, okay, and there's my numbers, everything like that. When I click on this, this shows me, right, all the different content that's on here. But nowhere do I see content 1, 2, 3, etc. anywhere. All I see are these little buttons here. Okay, and that's the tricky part, right? That's the part that's like, when I say tricky, I mean like, that's the trick that we are pulling on the users. Like, wow, how is this even happening? What's actually even going on as I do this? Okay, so when I click on this, I just want you to note that in the actions panel over here, there is something that says on success, what is going to happen, an advanced action. All right, we don't have to worry about that right now. Okay, all we need to worry about is like, what's actually going on, why it's doing the thing that it's doing. We're saying, hey, do this script. I was like, okay, you still don't know what it is. And I click on this, you're going to see it's going to take me to my advanced actions. Again, don't worry about that. That's going to be in the next video. But I click on this and you're going to see here, whoa, a lot of stuff that's happening here, right? What is the script? Like, what are we even talking about? What are the actions that's happening? In this case, we're saying, hey, we're going to change the state of this, right? We learned about states from blah, blah, blah to normal, okay? Right? I have no idea what that means still. All I know is that Captivate gives me these awesome things to do. They've done all the heavy lifting for me. But the big thing to take away here is the word state, okay? And we need to identify kind of what these things are, what it's referring to certainly. So we need to identify, is this referring to something over here? Well, there's a tab number 14. Oh, okay, starting to look somewhat familiar. Okay, all right, you know what? I'm gonna kind of study this a little bit and maybe start naming things so they can actually mean something to me. But the key takeaway here is we can start to kind of deconstruct slowly and steadily, what's going on with some of these things that are off the shelf by taking a look at some of these advanced actions. And again, when we learn about how to do these ourselves, it's going to make a lot more sense. But the key takeaway here is changing the state. So what does that actually look like here? When I click on this, remember, these are the things that actually changed, right? Remember I had these little boxes here? So what I want you to note here is that each of these have their own state view. Earlier on, we did some other lessons where there were different state views as well, right? Where we did James, the person who was getting dressed, his face was changing to a different state. We also did another interaction where the construction worker, their state changed when you got all your answers right. Some of you may have seen state changes from a button, right? When you mouse over it, okay? We can have state changes for each individual boxes as well, okay? And then our actions will say, hey, listen, we want to make it so when somebody clicks on this, let's get to a different type of state, all right? So what do I mean by that? Let's go ahead and take a look at the state view for introduction right here, right? We know that this is going to change. So when I click on that, it's going to take me to state view. And guess what? I have all of these individual state views. See that? Content 1, Content 2, etc. Right? So I have introduction, and I might come over to here and say, okay, you know what? Content 1 is going to be our mission statements. Okay, look at that. All right, and now that's going to be there. So when somebody clicks on that first one, it's going to take them, bam, right to that. All right, let's come over to here. Our history. Okay, great. So because we're now in our state view, that is how we are making changes to whatever that content is going to show through this particular advanced action. We don't have to worry about any of that other stuff, right? Because they've done all the heavy lifting, we can now use an interaction like this. Right? And then again, later on, I'm going to show you how to do these things from scratch. But guess what? Maybe you're going to skip it. You're like, I don't need to know how to do that because they've given me all this cool stuff to be able to do. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of this state. And then I can come over to here very easily, right? And just say, okay, this is going to be our mission. This is going to be our history. Okay, and now let's see what this is going to do for us. All right, so let's go ahead and preview it now. And now let's give it a shot. And look at that, there's our mission. And look at that, comes right up. Our history, look at that. So I have now kind of gone under the hood to see what my state views are, but I didn't have to touch any type of advanced interaction, any variables, anything like that. We're certainly going to learn all those things, but I just want you to see, maybe again, you don't want to necessarily tinker with it and you love those interactions, you can play with them just the same. And following up on what we just did, let's go ahead and take a look at the hotspot. Okay, so take a look at this, right? So when I click on these things, we want this to change to a different state, right? Depending on what I've clicked on, right? So 01 is on top of this clamp here. Number 2 is on top of this belt here. Number 3 is someplace else. We want to make it say different things. So this set of words has its own built-in state. Okay, so, or series of states, I should say. So I click on that, and you're going to see, look at this, like magic, here's hotspot content 1, right? So really, we want this to say, I don't know what this is, I'll just call this Jimmy Clamp. All right, and then maybe we're selling something. Okay, that'll be $59.99. Okay, that's great. All right, and then this one is going to be for 2. Okay, that's going to be the Sally belt. Let's stick to software development. Okay, but you notice here I can make all kinds of different changes to this too. If I wanted to, I can make it a different color, right? I can just do all kinds of different things to make it so it's now mine. You know, I don't have to use what they have. Great, and that's going to do that, right? So hopefully you get the picture at this point, right? And I can just make those changes. But let's now see this one in action. And you'll notice that I've very barely made any kind of differences in my types of approaches to what I did for the last one, right? I just kind of worked with, I have these buttons and I have these states. And I didn't even have to mess with what was going on with any of these advanced actions or anything like that. I can certainly go in here and I can see what's going on here, but it gave me a little hint as to what was going on here, right? It was all about those 4 states, right? Okay, great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this slide, and let's just see. Very interested in this Jimmy Clamp. All right, curious about it. I click on it. Beautiful. Look at that. Number 2, beautiful. I've got total ownership of this. And again, I had to do very little here. All right, so the big takeaway here is that what we know already in terms of our states is going to really help us. Okay, so when you preview it and you're not sure about what it does, you can take a look at our scripts here to be able to understand what's going on. You can take a look. Oh, you see the word state? Wow, I know what that means. I have no idea what this means. So I'm going to stick with what I know and then go to the state, because I saw when I previewed it, this is the thing that changed. So there was a little hint for me to say, oh, you know what? I bet there's different states that are happening that are making this change periodically. All right, so a lot of little hints here and there. So again, don't worry about doing all the coding, any kind of advanced interactions, anything like that. We're going to learn about that in the next series. Okay, so practice this. Take a look at some of those other assets there. There's a lot of little freebies there, very generous, and it'll make you look like a hot shot. All right, so thanks again, and we'll see you soon. And thank you, everyone. That concludes our 3rd training session on Adobe Captivate. I promised we'd cover a lot of cool stuff, and we did. So let's recap. We went deeper into making your e-learning modules accessible for all learners, including how to work with closed captioning, apply alt text, applying tab order, and more. We also went pretty deep into advanced quiz techniques and tools such as question pools, gift files, CSV files, the template that we explored, sharing quiz question pools, and so much more. We also completed a very sophisticated project from beginning to end, applying simple drag and drop to a more complex outcome for your users. And we also discussed the assets panel and some advanced interactions, which will segue nicely into our next Captivate session. Yes, there will be another one coming up. I hope you enjoyed this training and the program as much as I do, and we look forward to seeing you in the next part of our Captivate series.